Yo, Crypto Nation and mining family, what's going on out there? So today we've got the Fate of EIP 3368 in the hands of the devs now. Yo, with my man, Max Voltage. What's up?
Hey, good morning. Feels way too early.
Oh, God. And you don't even have a cup of coffee in hand?
I do not yet. Do not yet.
Is it,
I will have
is it brewing?
brown cup of coffee soon.
Is it
soon.
is it brewing?
Not quite yet.
Oh, shit.
It will be. It will be. The wife is grinding the coffee as we speak.
Oh, fresh coffee. Oh.
Yes.
If I was a
That's
coffee
what we do in
drink,
this
if
household.
I was a coffee drinker, that sounds like the shit.
Yeah, my wife wanted to make sure that everybody knows that she is the one that grinds the coffee 97% of the time. So
it's
and it's by hand.
It's ground with love. Hell no. Oh God. So we got a couple of people. I see Jason Osborne. He's like, I like my coffee just like I like my crypto. Oh gosh. Man, the devs are late now.
Not surprising.
No, not at all, not at all. They're probably going, man, we should just make them wait a little bit, let the tensions rise, and then we're gonna deny it.
Oh, just don't be surprised that the is the chat already going nuts at this point? I don't have it up on my computer, so
I have it up behind. Yeah, chat's already going off.
yeah, I figured. So what's going to be interesting is that we're probably not going to start talking about EIP 3368 for an hour because they got to go over Berlin
Right.
Before this. So
Right, Berlin, and then so that they can properly tell how they're screwing the miners over for the investors. Because the investors are more important than the miners or the users.
well, like I said, I keep telling the analogy over and over again. We are service providers, but what happens when you decide you want to pay your service providers too little? There are consequences to those actions.
Oh yeah,
You know, and honestly, you don't know. It's like, well, are they just going to sit there and take it and be unhappy about it, but still continue to operate like they were before? Or are they going to be like, you know what? I'm taking my business elsewhere. I got other places I can do my services. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the real question. Obviously, in this case, the cost of ETH or the price of ETH will have, a lot to do with what happens. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, as we were talking about last night, the ideal outcome of this for today is, I mean, if you've been paying attention to what BBT has been saying, he's saying this most likely will not be needed. We do not need to put it into this fork. What we need to do is have it ready for this fork and know how we're going to implement it or have timeframes and things like that of when we need to implement it and that type of thing so that we're ready if the circumstances present themselves. And so honestly, the best outcome we can expect from this meeting is to have it on an agenda for a future meeting, saying, we hear what you're saying. We hear that there's a possibility of a risk. We don't know if there's a possibility of a risk right now. So in May, we will bring this back up, evaluate the conditions, and decide what to do at that point, whether to be to implement it, whether to be saying, nope, we're definitely not going to do anything, or to say, well, we still don't know yet, but we have a little bit of time. I mean, something like this, they do final testing a month before the fork. So this could be something that could be implemented, in my opinion, something that could be implemented right at the end because it is such a simple change. Mm-hmm. It isn't something that you're really going to screw up.
No.
So, I mean, they could make this decision in June. So if we can get that commitment, and I actually put that in on the ETH R&D channel to Tim, who I know was on the channel at that time. So I'm hoping that he takes that to heart and and that, you know, again, that this threat is taken seriously and is just evaluated. As we all know, the odds of anything happening are remote. So
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath thinking that anything's gonna really change out of this. I think they're looking too much into how they can pump the price of ETH versus, you know, and they already said, you know, we're paying too much for security. And it's that one blows my mind, because you look at Bitcoin and they're paying way more for security.
Right. And then the other thing, sorry, I'm having trouble losing my train of thought this morning. Shoot, it'll come back to me, whatever that point just was.
The wifey needs to hurry up and grind.
It's brewing now. I can smell it.
Ooh.
And keep your voice down. Yeah, I don't think that would be. You don't know my wife.
Oh, too funny. So we got some people starting to roll in. We got Yashnik. We got Dogelord. Yo, you like hats like this? Go over to dogelord.com. Don't delay. Buy today. What's going on, Edward Park and Crypto Bedell? Yo. So, man, these guys are really slacking this morning.
Yeah, I expect that chat to be quite lively.
Mm-hmm.
Quite lively.
It's crazy how they're not even there. Man, if them showing up like this is any indication of how they release code. Uh-oh. So, Ethereum Foundation, they just chatted in the YouTube chat. Hi all, the stream will start in 50 minutes. So you were right.
Yeah.
They were like, YouTube time was wrong because of DST time. So they just admitted that they put the wrong time in, basically.
Yeah, see, I was... Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, I am right once in a while.
Once in a while, right?
Should just heard my wife's reaction.
Damn it, I had another, like, at least a half an hour of sleep I could have gotten. Damn it.
Yep. Oh well. Do you want to keep chatting? Do you want to restart the stream later? What do you want to do?
Shit, we can keep chatting. I don't give a shit.
For me. I have my coffee now, so I'm
right. It's time to do the Rise Mine. So their stream will be in 50 minutes, bastards.
Yeah, like I said, I looked at it this morning, and I'm like, I know that their meetings are at 1400, and so when you sent me the link, and I said I think it might be another hour later, I hadn't checked UTC time, and then I did check UTC time, and I was like, yeah, they didn't move ahead like we did. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, YouTube's based in the States, so yeah, if they set the time based on, but that's weird. I would think that they would at least been able to.
No, whenever they were setting the time, they didn't go through their settings and make sure it was in their local time zone.
Yeah.
YouTube used to get me in the very, very beginning. It's like I didn't realize it was like East Coast, and I'm like setting time, and I'm like, why is everybody saying I'm late?
Hey, well, look on the bright side. Maybe chat will get chatted out by the time the meeting actually starts.
Right. Oh gosh. And how's it going, Ilion from Slovakia? Yo. I've been getting like more diverse people from around the world as of lately. Like, wow.
Oh, this affects everybody.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm just saying, just as of recently, in the last like month, as I've been doing a bunch of videos, my live streams have been coming on with like people from all over the world for the first time. I'm like, wow, my YouTube channel finally branched out of the United States.
Oh, I do remember what my point was. So, everybody seems like, okay, well, 1559, it's just a done deal. It's in there. Hey, if anything we've been taught, nothing is done until it actually forks. Look at what happened to EIP 2315. 2315 was supposed to be in Berlin. And I mean, it was like done. It had been developed, tested, ready to go. And one person spoke up, and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, maybe it doesn't need to be in there. Now, it obviously doesn't have the same ramifications that 1559 does, but it does show that the process isn't necessarily just done just because a call is made prior. So that could actually go for 3368 as well. So anyway, I really think what happened with 2315 was pretty interesting recently. And actually, I know that Greg Colvin is the guy who was the lead on that project, and he was trying to get it brought up again for this meeting. So I don't know if it ever made it to the agenda.
Minutes. Yeah.
But I know that he was trying to get it brought up for this meeting.
And what does that proposal bring up?
So 2315, it has to do. I don't remember exactly what it was trying to implement, but the functions that it was developing were new functions, and it was determined that nobody was going to use them. That there was not a use case for them, but the reasoning behind leaving it in was that it was the first time that Ethereum would have subroutines. And so that was why it was supposed to be significant. So then there was an argument of, putting subroutines in, getting it fully tested, is this significant so that it stays there and that we know that we can use this functionality with no hit to performance and no, basic functionality. If nobody uses it and it's there, so anyway, there were a lot of conversations like that going back and forth, but eventually it was determined that, hey, if nobody's going to use this, we're not putting it in. And there's another, I might have the number wrong, but I thought it was EIP 615 that was supposed to expand upon 2315 and put more useful functions in, that are subroutines into the code. And that was what was supposed to happen next, but they did 2315 as a subset to get something in immediately to kind of test the functionality, and that kind of backfired. So anyway, like I said, it just goes to show that nothing is over until, the fork actually goes in, or at least until they start testing, doing final tests.
Right. Yeah, it's like, and it's like, and I wonder how, it's like with some of these EIPs that they're putting in, it's like, how is it going to affect ETH 2.0 at it too?
Yeah, well, they may have to rewrite a lot of things for that. For all I know, like I said, I'm not a coder.
Neither am I.
Not either.
Yeah.
I know how to structure code and things like that, but I have no idea what the difference is going to be between ETH 2.0 and ETH 1.0 as far as the code goes.
Right.
That was good.
So if this doesn't go in and, price of ETH kind of flatlines, you're going to continue to mine ETH yourself, or are you going to move on to something else?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. I've I've gone back and forth. I mean, you catch me in a good day or a bad day. Um, I change my story. I had said at one point, sorry for making a little bit of noise. I dripped a little bit of coffee on my microphone.
Nice.
Anyway, I got my peanut gallery behind me too. Anyway, and she made me lose my train of thought. What was I just talking about? Oh yeah, what I'm going to be mining. So hey, at least she keeps me on track,
right?
So yeah, I don't know. I've thought of doing what a lot of people are going to do, just going over to NiceHash when all this is said and done and letting them figure it out.
Right.
One other thing that was really interesting to me, and I don't know what the answer is, but we're talking about the risk to ETH. If the profitability of Ethereum comes down, and some of the other projects that are also using ETH hash become, approximately the same profitability as Ethereum after the change, that puts them at risk probably more than Ethereum. Because all of a sudden they have all this hash rate will go to NiceHash. And now you have people that are like, well, I can more easily 51% attack this small project than 51% attacking Ethereum. Actually, that's what I think Ethereum's best defense is. If we can bring down the profitability to the same level as all the other ETH hash coins, we have nothing to worry about.
Right, we blend in behind the forest.
Yeah, we blend in with everybody else, and our change makes a security risk for them.
Yeah.
I was like, I had not thought of that at all.
That's an unusual attack factor. Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, so that made me kind of rethink, well, maybe I don't want to be part of that. I really don't want to have any, damage done to other. I don't want damage done to any of them, but that I certainly wouldn't want them caught in the, in the crossfire, basically, of what Ethereum's doing.
Crypto Mikkel is like, when dev call, that will be in like 40 minutes. The devs put the wrong time into their YouTube, so it was showing that it was supposed to start at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time, when it should have been 9 a.m. Central Standard Time.
Good old Yashnik.
Yep. Well, at least he's not banning you this morning.
Well, yeah, he's been warning. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's worse.
Right.
Than to get the straight out ban. I don't know. Maybe he's getting soft in his old age.
Crypto Mel's like, cool. I thought I missed it. No. And Ilion's like, working Friday afternoon. Nice. Hopefully you don't get in trouble for listening to us while at work.
You want to put the link to the meeting in chat?
Yeah, I certainly can do that. Copy. And that is the. Oop. Oh, hold on here. That's the link there. And paste. There's the link. There we go. Perfect. So if anybody's wanting to watch it too, there's the link to it. Otherwise, We are going to be live streaming it here as soon as they go live. See how badly us miners are about to get shafted.
Well, the one good thing is, I think that the publicity of this and the effect may have slowed down some people from wanting to get into mining, at least whole hog. Because a lot of things I've started to see is not what card should I buy. People have started to say, is this a good time to get in?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's been a nice change. Because then, people who've been in it for a while, like us, we can say, look, probably not.
Yeah, for more than just one reason, too. It's not, ETH's going to go to shit in July. Mm-hmm. It's fucking, have you tried to look for computer hardware? It's now in a new classification called unattainium.
Right. Yep. You have to be extremely resourceful, no question.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm still waiting, God, it's been 3 months since I, pre-ordered. It's, good.
Well, actually 2 months, because we did it in January and we're still in March, so it's 2 months.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely has been quite a while. I didn't even look at that list. I know that I at least moved up from 8th to 5th on the list. But they never updated the list.
I know, they haven't updated shit. It's like,
Yeah. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that Rick doesn't supply the updates for people that aren't on Discord. So I may give him a call later on today and just be like, hey, I know that you usually are in touch with this other guy. I don't even know his real name. Daedalus or something like that is the guy who kind of runs it. But I'd be happy to provide him an update on the 3060 Ti list. So what do you have? For those of people that don't know, there's a local system integrator that has a queue, but only for people that can go pick it up. He will not ship. So that's what Nem and I are talking about. So what did you end up putting in an order for?
3 3080 EVGA for the win ultras.
Got it. Yeah, and that's the longest list.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, I was actually lucky because mine was on the 18th, and if I put mine in on the 18th for the 3080s, I'd be down around 30 on that one. So, yeah. So hopefully I can get those 4 cards. Get one down to my son, one down to my daughter, maybe one to my neighbor. We'll see.
Don't lie. You're scalping them all, aren't you? You're one of those.
No, that's my official story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm definitely not scalping, that's for sure. Although it is interesting. I have seen some stories. I won't name names or anything, but there's been miners out there that have started to take the tact of, you know what, the money right now is too good. When you add up the amount of money you're going to make from mining over the next 3 to 4 months and not knowing what it's going to be like after that, it's better to sell now, take the cash, put it in crypto, and then once 1559 hits and things start to come down, then you buy back in at a lower price.
Yep.
So it's something I've thought about, but you and I both know we like to mine.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be...
I have this addiction.
Yeah. So we're not going to be, worse off. Our hardware's still going to pay for itself, and before anything were to happen. So it's definitely not a financial risk. It's just a matter of what would be the best financial return.
Yeah.
And so I see both. I see logic in both paths is the key. Now, if we're getting into May and I still don't have those 3060 Ti's, I'll probably maybe cancel 1 or 2 of them. at that point, knowing that, I wouldn't necessarily maybe want to take the same risk at that point. But for right now, I'll probably get mine, I'm guessing, by the end of March. And so I'll still be in good shape.
Right. I'm hoping that I won't have to wait much longer. It looks like the people who are just about ready to get a lot of the 3080s have been on the list for like right around 64 days. I'm at 55, so a week, maybe 2. I'm hoping I'll have mine. At least that's my hope.
Okay, I see which one you are then. You're actually right below, I think, the guy that's...
I'm number 41.
What was that?
I'm number 41.
Oh, so your name isn't on here. Okay.
No.
Got it. You actually then got in right above the guy who's running the group. Daedalus is the guy who is kind of running that Discord group.
Oh, nice. Yeah, according to the list that you shared with me, I'm number 41. So
yeah, I see which one it is because I'm like, I know it's got to be one that has a 3 on it.
Yep.
So that narrows it down.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I tell you what, when I put mine in, mine says 3 on it as well, but I did that because he said he had a limit of 3, and one of them is for my neighbor. So he was letting me do that, and I said, well, because of COVID and stuff, I'm not just going to have him hop in my car. And I said, I'll just pay for it, and he'll pay me. And he's like, well, what about warranty? I said, EVGA doesn't care. It's whoever registers that card, that's who gets the warranty. I said, it's transferable. Now, if it's a different brand, then I'll have to look into it. So I think I looked into Gigabyte at the time.
Yeah, Gigabyte doesn't care.
Yeah, they don't care, but Zotac does. I think they look to try to get out of warranty issues a bit more than others. So yeah,
well,
Zotac
was always more of a Chinese company, though.
Oh, are they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Even though they got a local branch out here,
right?
They're still Chinese. They don't want it. They don't care about it out here because out there they don't have the right to repair. You know, they can deny just for you taking a fan off.
Exactly. I mean, for those people that may not watch Gamers Nexus, I'm not saying EVGA has always been perfect. They've had issues in the past, but they've always taken care of their customers.
Yep.
And there's been, like for instance, the fan connector. I mean, we've all seen people, do teardowns of GPUs to do thermal pads or to reapply paste and all that kind of stuff. Gamers Nexus is like, yeah, EVGA is like a dream now that they use a good connector. And maybe it's a few cents more for that connector, but it makes, repairing the GPU and reapplying paste and all that much easier.
Their connectors are color coded. It's like,
oh, are they? I haven't torn them down, but I mean,
yeah, the 3080s, all 3 fan headers are a different color. It is
nice.
Amazing.
I have, by the way, I have a little care package coming from EVGA today. So I'm looking forward to getting that. I'll be doing unboxing video. I've got a bunch of stuff coming in. I'll be doing an unboxing video here. I don't know if it'll be Sunday or if I'll wait till it all comes in, but I'll probably do it in two different batches. I got some stuff coming in today through Sunday, and then some things coming in next week.
Yeah, I've finally got the Tesla K80 card on a test bench. Now I've got to rig up a way to utilize, because I don't have a blower fan for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a Delta fan, so I'm going to try to make a little housing for it, and so that I can force some air down the cooler area, because the Tesla cards don't have fans. because they were made to go into a server.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, heck, you go back and watch Jay's 2 Cents video when he did the air conditioner cooling overclocking video, where he basically builds his own little tunnel to direct the air.
Yep. Yeah, so I've got to rig that up and then try to find something that will actually that knows how to use a Tesla card for from the mining software. Because like I've heard a whole bunch of stuff going, yeah, you'll be lucky if you can get 15 mega hash a second on Ethereum. And then there's like one person claiming that, oh yeah, I can get 100 mega hash with it. I mean, it does have 24 gigabytes and dual core on there. But from as far as I was able to read, for the architecture that thing is, didn't have very good RAM allocation.
Got it. Yeah,
the memory controller sucked, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you seeing what you can do with that card.
Yeah. I know the person who sent it to me. He's like, oh, since you're willing to take a look at it, I'll just give this one to you as cheap. He's like, but let me know first if it mines so that I can go grab more.
Before you put out the video.
Right, exactly. And I'm like, and like, since he sent it to me, you know, life happens. Been sitting there doing some, helping out a gentleman with his truck shop, rearranging it because he got a new landlord, and the landlord's taking over half of his shop. And so he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he's an older guy with medical issues and stuff. And I've been having him, like, take a look at my truck. Yeah, mechanic's having another mechanic take a look at his truck. But I'm not a diesel guy. So because I don't work on them day in and day out, I don't know all the little subtle little quirks about them. Like, you put me in front of a gas engine, I can just sit there and just listen to a motor, and I could tell you, like, oh, this is hitting like this, I need to look in these areas. Diesel's not the same. Mikkel's like, I've got a Sanyo Screamer. He's got a blower fan.
Oh, okay.
A Sanyo blower fan. We call it.
I was just gonna ask, because I'm like, what is he talking about? So, did you by any chance see Gamers Nexus video for the teardown of the 6700 XT?
No, I did not. I missed that one.
It is probably one of my... I was falling asleep because it was after I said I was going to bed when I watched it. Oh, I actually fell asleep towards the end of it. But the beginning was honestly pretty funny, because you could just see his disdain for the product, just like, I don't have much faith in this, you know. And when he took he's like, I hope that AMD put thermal pads below this. And when he took the back plate off and there were no thermal pads, I thought he was going to lose his, you know what. He was just, he had to take a pause. He just couldn't believe it. And then did you see Dizzy Mining's video of the 6700 XT? The memory like goes sky high in temperature.
I bet.
Yeah, so I'm like, yeah, gee, I wonder why.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, he goes through the whole flip chip design. So I know you said the GDDR6X is a flip chip.
It's all the GDR6 memory modules. It's just the 6X is the binned version of it, which as soon as you bin it, you know that fucker's getting hotter because they're bin better, so they're gonna unlimit those memory modules, and you're gonna, for every watt of power you use, you're creating so many BTUs, and if you do not have the proper way to wick that heat off, there ain't nothing you're gonna do about it. And then you're looking at all like the 3060 non-Ti, the 6700, my 1080 Ti has more performance than both of those cards, dude. I was sitting there, I was looking at the specs on the 3060. I'm like, yeah, I want to get that just for testing. And I start like looking at the specs, and I'm like, why does this like seem low? And I pulled up the specs for, I got a Zotac 1080 Ti Amp Core Extreme, the triple fan variant. And yeah, mine actually is probably about a 20% performance boost over the 3060. I'm like, the 3060's got rudimentary RTX core.
Yeah.
Fuck
yeah,
that.
it's interesting because I mean, at the price, when you just do the price comparison, it can make sense. So if you, I forget who I was telling this to the other day, but I'm like, okay, so if I can get a 3060 Ti for less than $550, I'll buy it. If I can get a 3060 for less than $400, I will buy it. Now that obviously limits what cards I'm actually going to be able to buy, and obviously it has to be at retail. But you know, I know Gigabyte and EVGA both have cards that are below the $400 price point. Certainly, oh, and then one Asus card on the 3060 side is below that. And same thing, basically, it ends up being about the same for the 3060 Ti as well. You have the Asus Dual that would be in that price range, and then you have all the EVGA cards that are in that price range, and most of the Gigabyte cards would be in that price range. But it is interesting, you know, so you have, you know, everybody, you know, talks about, well, the tariffs. Well, that's fine, but you knew it was coming, people. You just didn't believe it. Right. And if you look at EVGA, where are their cards manufactured? Taiwan. They're not manufactured in China. So they don't have the same tariff, you know, their price increase. Everybody's like, well, why did they raise their prices? Well, they raise their prices because it doesn't change the logistics of it. And the cost of anything coming from China right now, you know, you look at a container cost versus what it was, you know, 12 months ago. I don't recall exactly, but I remember it was over double. So yeah, there's a significant amount of cost that way. And they had to take that into account, but that's the reason why EVGA didn't have to raise prices up as high.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And and then you're like looking at some of these cards, and you're like, man, I can go onto the secondary market and like get some of the older hardware that I just don't have ray tracing cores now.
Right.
Or my favorite one is that what was it, the HX30 that just got released?
Right.
A 1660 Super for $700.
Yeah, that's insane. That is absolutely insane.
That's like, man, I've got the 1660 Ti. I did not spend no $700 for that. Yep. And I get at least 30 to 31 mega hash. Not no 26. So if I optimize it, I might get like 28 because NVIDIA doesn't optimize that far.
I don't know. It'll be interesting because I think it will still get 30. I'm at 31 and a half on mine. I only have one 1660 Ti now. But I remember that one started at like 20, right around 27. So I'm thinking that those 30 cards will be able to be optimized up to 30. But even so,
see, mine right out of the gate was just under 30. Okay. And I got mine day one. Like it wasn't, when I got it in my hand, the 1660 Ti's weren't even out officially for more than 24 hours.
So I may have benefited from a driver update at that point because I didn't get it until about 6 months after it came out. So that's probably why. I know I told the story before, but yeah, the whole reason why I got into mining was like a project for me and my kids. Like I said, my son didn't really take to it because he had a crappy 2060 that was causing him issues, and so he related it to that mining was ruining his card type of thing, which the logic was sound, you know, because he started seeing the problems about the time that he started mining, but it had nothing. He knows now that it had nothing to do with it. He's had that card RMA'd once. The other card still has that problem. It's a known issue. It doesn't happen very often. I don't remember all the details regarding it, but it will shut his computer off, not just freeze it.
Nice.
So yeah, exactly. So yeah, and it's an Asus card, which I've learned that through all this, they don't have the best support.
No. But their ROG Strix are amazing, though.
Well, that's what he has.
Oh,
He has
God.
a 2060, original, not super, 2060 ROG Strix.
Wow.
So yeah,
Usually
so that's
those
why I
are
was
the
like,
better
perfect
cards.
for mining.
Yeah.
You can tune it down and won't harm it at all. It's got tons of cooling. So yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mikkel got his 1660 Ti day one also. He couldn't mine with his for a month. No mining software would recognize the card. He got the MSI and I had gotten the Asus ROG Strix. ROG Strix worked day one. I just, the overclocks didn't work. It just had like these generic, this is what you get. You can play with the fan. And I couldn't put it onto a rig with 1070s on it. Because it was like, my suspicion was that the driver it was using was a generic 1070 driver. And whenever you put it in with 1070s, the 1070 drivers would fight that driver, and it would like make one of my 1070s, the fan stop working. Completely. Just shut it down and be like, why aren't you on? Turn it off! It's getting on! Turn it off! Yeah, it was horrible. And then I had it on its own rig for a while, and then Mikkel was like, "Oh, I can finally mine with that. It finally works." So I slotted mine in with the regular with a bunch of 1070s, and it started working. I'm like, "Oh, thank God." No more kernel panic from the drivers.
That's interesting, though. That it's NVIDIA. You would think cards would just all be able to use the same drivers. So actually, that made me think of something else, though. But is there anybody out there that has a B550 or B450 AMD motherboard that also and basically are you having the USB issue that's come out from AMD? Anybody out there have that problem? I know I do.
Now, does it affect the rear outputs, or is it just on case side that you're having the issue?
It affects the rear outputs.
Wow.
I basically have my keyboard and mouse hooked up on the rear of the computer, so I'm not sure if my keyboard has a lag to it, but my mouse definitely does. And there was, with Gigabyte, there was an update that came out that seemed to alleviate most of my problems, but I haven't gone into it isn't enough of a hassle at this point for me to go into the BIOS and turn down my PCIe slots down to Gen 3. That supposedly fixes it until an actual fix comes out, but it's a GISA 1.2.0.2 that we're waiting for. I've got 1.2.0.1 in my BIOS. But I was just curious if anybody else was seeing the problem. Like I said, it was really bad for a while. Like, I have a wireless dongle on my computer, and that thing would be up and down, especially at computer startup. It would be connected at computer startup, and then as everything else was loading, it would go down. And the only way to get it back was to unplug it and plug it back in.
Oh, wow.
So that was happening like all the time. And I had another mouse that wouldn't work with this computer, and I thought it was the mouse. And I started using a different wireless mouse, and that one was working fine. But I have a feeling that was related to the same USB issue.
Yeah, very well could be. Holy cow. Yeah, I mean, I don't have that motherboard myself to be testing anything like that out. Because everything I've got is like a little bit older. Yeah. But I remember Gamers Nexus going, they needed to come out with a new update for it. That a bunch of people are having a ton of issues, especially when they have it on a hub. Also, because everything going through one port on a USB hub, it shuts the whole hub down. So if you've got an array of stuff hooked up to it, good luck.
Yeah. I saw my name pop across a Discord. Rabid Mining was making a comment saying that we were live.
Oh, nice. Yep. And J-Bo is like, I get an email at 3 a.m. for a 1660 Super for $319.99. Go check out at 8 o'clock. They were sold out. That was Newegg.
Yeah, I was very disappointed last night. Best Buy had what looked like a drop at like 12:30, but that was right about the time I had fallen asleep at my computer. And when I woke up, I was like, well, let me give it a shot. It was still there. I got it in my cart. There were stores that supposedly had it. Every time I would select a store, it would say it wasn't there, it wasn't there, it wasn't there, until you got the no store within 250 miles. I was like, oh. And it was an Asus Tough. This is the month of my birthday, so I've got a 10% off coupon with Best Buy.
Oh.
So it was an Asus Tough that I would have gotten for $459 of 3060 Ti.
Oh, nice.
I was like, oh, yeah, it would have been nice if I would have gotten it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, unfortunately, I did not. So that kept me up for about another 45 minutes.
So much for going to bed, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Too funny, too funny. These devs need to go live now. It's like, God. So what's your thoughts on these fucking Nvidia and now AMD looking like they're going to come out with a mining card too now?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's kind of like, I don't know. I guess I don't really, unless they're going to come out with a card that is going to be significantly less expensive than the 5700. I mean, that's basically what we're talking about here with AMD. It'd be dumb for them to use, their 6000 series chips,
right?
Since they don't mine any better than the 5700, or not significantly better,
right?
So I mean, I think for them it makes a lot of sense, because hopefully they can use maybe a different line. I mean, so the 5700 though was the same pod. It's still 7. They're both 7 nanometers. So I don't know if that really helps them from a production of the chip standpoint. So that's kind of where I was thinking, how does this help? With what NVIDIA is doing with most of those mining cards using, a higher nanometer pod, that they are using a completely different, foundry line, whatever you want to call it, to produce those chips. So that makes sense from that point. So I don't know. It almost seems like robbing Peter to pay Paul with AMD, as well as, honestly, guys, you're way too late to the game. I think they're going to end up sitting on a lot of these, but we'll see.
Right. I think this is going to burn them like Sapphire with those fucking grin cards.
Oh, okay. That's before my time, so I don't remember that.
So Sapphire, right when Grin was coming out, Sapphire got all up on board with it, and they made a 16 gigabyte mining specific card, but it was still all on. It was a 5. I think it was a 580. That they slapped 16 gigabytes of VRAM onto it. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it was just a normal 580s that had a slight BIOS mod on there. It had a dual BIOS switch on it. And if you ran it in Linux, and you had a little bit of a newer board on there, so that it had there's like a functionality on the chipset that allows for like a different way to communicate between the card and the VGA chip. I mean the CPU itself, and you use the ROMC drivers with it for Linux, and you would get a little bit of a bump on there. And then they, their representative was not expecting me to have a. Huh?
Hold on 1 second. Sorry.
Oh, no problem, no problem. He got himself one of those. Oh, it was a 570. Oh, thank you, Mikkel. Yeah, you still got that one. That piece of shit.
Oh, where are you going?
Yeah, Schnick, you're crazy, dude. Oh, God. Unban Yashnik, veto Yashnik, overruled. Yashnik is not God. Yeah, but does that 570 get any more mega hash than a regular 570 or 580 Mikkel on Ethereum? And it's 7 minutes until Ethereum people finally get on a fucking call.
Anyway, all right, well, I'm going to let you go. All right, see you, bye. All right, sorry about that.
Oh, yeah.
I have my daily morning call with my dad.
Oh, no problem, no problem.
He had some blood pressure issues.
Oh, shit.
So basically, I get his blood pressure every morning. It's fully under control now.
Nice.
So everything's good, but we've just continued on with the updates just to make sure.
Nice. Yeah, and Mikkel corrected me. It was a 570 with 16 gigabytes because
okay.
He still got the one that we were testing. And the ROCM drivers was third-party drivers, not a licensed by AMD in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, their representative wasn't expecting me to have a 1080 Ti to be able to compete next to this thing, because he's like sitting there going, well, you need a minimum of 11 or 12 gigabytes in order to mine Grin 32. So he's thinking that that his card's supposed to be this amazing card. So I did everything to put it into its best. Everything was in Linux. Had the ROCM drivers installed on this thing, mining away, and it was getting like 0.9 graphs a second. I slapped my 1080 Ti on there. I'm getting 1.45 graphs a second. And the representative for Sapphire is like, oh, that can't be. There's got to be a mistake. And I'm like, no, it's reporting on poolside. This this is not a coincidence. Your AMD card is not that good.
I'm starting to read some of the chat. It seems to have slowed down a bit.
A little bit, because they've been chatting for an hour.
I know.
So hopefully we ain't going to see so much chatter once it starts up now.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, you can see the people are like, the people that have no concept of actually what's going on. I mean, we can have a discussion with people that say, I understand that there is always a risk. I don't think that the risk is going to be significantly worse when 1559 goes into effect, and we certainly can't tell that now, but I hear what you're saying. What you're saying makes sense. Yes, if the right conditions happen, we're certainly more at risk, but I don't think it's necessary. I can have a conversation with those people. But when somebody says 3368 is a cash grab by miners, no thank you. That's a non-starter for a conversation.
Yeah, we're the greedy miners. All we want to do is just, take all of their money away from them because we set the fees. We're in full control of the fee structure. And
I actually feel bad for BBT because people are like, well, you're a miner, of course you're going to want this.
Yep.
It's like, wait a minute, it doesn't change the facts. It's one thing how I love when people want to discount what somebody is presenting just because their motivations may be for it. And it's like, I kind of get it, but at the same time, I don't. Or evaluate the argument for its merits, not for what somebody's motivation. This is numbers.
Right, and you get people going, oh, these greedy miners, they just need to get pushed off to the wayside and roll out ETH 2.0 because those miners don't understand that what 1559 is supposed to do is make Ethereum better. And they just don't, it's like, no, it doesn't.
Well, again, 1559 itself can be arguably to make Ethereum more usable for the users, but
only slightly though.
Yeah.
High fee structure is high fee structure, and yes. Congested blocks are still congested blocks.
Well, the difference though in this case is the fact that the blocks can go up and down based upon the demand. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects congestion. But at the same time, they've said fees won't change. Well, if fees won't change, that means that when you have very high demand times, like all of a sudden the demand spikes.
Yeah, another DeFi
that just
boom.
means it's just a different first auction, and it's in this case the first auction now is with the tips instead. So you're just saying, okay, well, we're just going to say this. Now we have a base fee that goes up and down, but you still have to see if you want to be included. You still got to make sure that your tip is high enough. Right. I don't see how that is appreciably different.
Right. I don't. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that people realize that we get congested on Ethereum, and you might be paying more than you were before, but you got the blinders on, and you stopped when it saw standardized fees. You stopped right there. You're like, oh, that's all I care about. That means this is making Ethereum better, and the miners need to stop being greedy because I'm not paying that much for security.
Well, Tim put it best. He told me a long time ago. He's like, usability doesn't make a great meme. Deflation and fee burn does.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that is unfortunately what users have latched onto, when in fact that's just a side effect. And if you can keep what the intention of 1559 was in the first place and not have that side effect, then so be it. What I'm really hoping for is that layer 2 solutions take off and that this becomes a non-issue. I know that York Down, I think is the guy's name on Discord. He'll probably be in this chat at some point. But him and I on the last call, the last ACD call, were basically agreeing that, hey, layer 2 solutions could come into full use come, July, which would really decrease the congestion. And if that were the case, then fees will go away, and 1559 people will go, wait a minute, where's the deflation? And I'll tell you what, as a miner that was saying this all along, I'll be like, yeah, this is why we had 3368 in our back pocket, because we thought maybe this might happen and not necessarily have to be in place. And now where is your deflation? Where is your fee burn? Oh yeah, that's right. It's nowhere. So either way, I would bet by the end of the year, a lot of the fees, the transaction fees, will be gone, unless of course you just have continual more and more adoption within the Ethereum network, which will drive up price, which will be good for everybody. So we'll have to kind of wait.
And Fundamental, I like that name. That's cool. Was like, but you can organize the transactions for big rewards to your pool. Wow, yes. It's not us as the miner. It's the pool itself. They can sit there and set their fee. Like, you have to tip the pool to make sure you're included into the next block. You'll see the MEV go up even higher under the circumstance of if a big whale decides to move, the people will pay big bucks to front run that. Either get in right before them so that they can do a buy before the pump, or they're going to pay huge to be the next transaction after that payment so that they can dump in on it.
That's basically that's the way it works now. It's whoever, whoever pays the most, whoever decides that they want to pay the most for gas, is the one. I mean, it's simple. They always talk about game theory. Bottom line is that mining pools are going to put in the block the highest fees of all the transactions, so that they can make the most money.
Right.
Alrighty, it's starting.
It looks like it is starting. They're 3 minutes late on top of an hour late.
I've been and we have a packed agenda today, so we can get right into it. First thing on the agenda is we have the Burden update go live on Robston in Gordy. I know that Rye had.
Can anybody else hear the stream
had an
on
update to give about the Robston fork
on our stream?
Yeah, you might not hear it.
So yeah, maybe we can start with.
Well, let me know. I'm going to turn it on and let me know if you get any echo or you hear it.
So we stopped importing on Robston at some point. We should have actually forked, but my bad. I misconfigured our miner, so we weren't actually mining. We are now. But yeah, we stopped importing on Robston, and it was because we hadn't fully removed.
Are you getting any of that coming back through the mic?
To BLS 12. And so I kind of had two things to discuss based on this.
Bad.
One is just a general thing about testnet consensus issues. What are people's thoughts on postmortems for testnet consensus issues? Is this kind of below the threshold, or is there an expectation for clients to be, doing a write-up on this? For mainnet, it's obvious. If there's something like that, then we'll write a postmortem. But yeah, what are the community's expectations around testnet postmortems? And the other question I had is, when should we have tests for non-inclusion of something? Clearly with 2315, it was last minute enough that we thought it was important to have tests for non-inclusion. And with BLS 12, we didn't have any tests for non-inclusion. And I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Thomas, if you're on the call, but I think Nethermind also had to pull it out kind of last minute. So this could be a potential issue in the future. So yeah, those are the two things that I want to talk about.
Yeah, I remember that we deployed BLS 12 and only removed it together with 2315, and yeah, we didn't notice with any tests that were there at that time.
I think it's tricky because the set of things that are not in a fork is infinite, and so we need to find a line to draw.
I think we just need one test that will say that whatever goes to the addresses that are after the latest precompile address for the next one. So if the last precompile is 15, if we test precompile 16, if it actually uses if it uses no gas,
there we go.
Then.
So that works. That works, but that's just for pre-compiles. I was hoping for maybe a more general rule, like okay, if we had reference tests for this, and then it gets pulled out, we should have reference tests against it. And that kind of helps solve Micah's issue of like, okay, well, obviously the set is infinite of the things we don't have there. So where do we draw the line, and like, what do we test?
I think the simplest thing is when you have tests that do test for the presence of it, run the same test one fork back. We should all fail the same way.
How often do we expect to pull back EIPs?
Actually, this actually happened on mainnet, or either mainnet or one of the testnets where Parity had implemented that zero signature transaction thing and managed to enable it on mainnet and had to do a panic new release. So there is some historical precedence about this happening. So my position is we should, in general, yes, we should try to cover these cases as well. But I don't know if we can make any definite line when and where.
I think all opcodes have the tests for non-inclusion, as it's just the pre-compos that do not have it, and anything outside like networking, transaction formats, as Martin suggested. So this is a bit harder to detect, but any opcodes being switched on or off, we can detect it, and I think we have tests for it already. Like there is a bad opcode test within the blockchain test that verifies for every single fork if the opcodes that shouldn't be there are not there, and if they return the invalid opcode. So 2315 is included automatically.
Ooh, one of the people in the chat's like, in
their
chat's like, no, 3368 will be rejected.
The thing with 2315 is that you also need to have the stack stuff right.
What I think will be interesting is, if you notice, I've never seen this before. They have their chat up on the screen in the call.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if somebody doesn't realize that and put something in there that they probably shouldn't.
In order to do it properly.
So maybe we should just create a note that in whatever process we create for when we're doing removing, that this should be something that's addressed, like what reverse test should happen. We should just make sure we have the conversation about it every time.
Yeah, I think that seems reasonable.
So Thomas asked the question. I just want to answer. No, it wouldn't return. There's no consensus on like what the error is. I mean, it either works or it goes out of gas. But there's no like consensus observable that this was that type of error or this type of error.
Yes, but the opcode, there is always at least one test for the opcode not failing for any change that includes the opcode. So it will automatically fail for any fork where we do not switch on that functionality.
And a thought on the post-mortem, I would say it should be up to the client implementing teams if they need one, and like they should just figure out if it's something that would be valuable to other teams or their own team, and that just kind of depends on the situation and what the bug was.
I mean, with postmortems, it's also partially the reason you do them is an expectation from others that they will be there. So what I'm trying to suss out is like the expectation around the testnet. Like, are we seeing it as like, oh, okay, well, you know, testnet consensus issues happen. That's partially what this rollout is designed for. So you don't need to do that. Or is the argument like, well, no, there are users on it, so do the postmortem. So basically what I'm asking is like, from people from other client teams, what would you do if you had a testnet consensus issue? Would you do a postmortem or not?
Yes, probably would.
I think the silence means everybody else doesn't want to admit that they would not.
So I guess, it'll be like a nice to have, like we maybe should not force people to do it, but I think it is valuable for the community to see it, and obviously for other client teams, and just for like historical, keeping track of what happened. Yeah.
And it's probably more important sometimes than others too. So that's just like depending on what the error ends up being.
Yeah, it depends of what kind of consensus issue, and depending on what kind, it will depend when we are going to basically release postmortem. Generally speaking, postmortem is something like explanation what's happened, and I think everybody would benefit from that.
Okay, I'm happy with it depends. You feel like it was a useful question to ask.
Oh, of course, I'm like live streaming.
Cool.
Okay.
Anything else on the Ropsten fork? I think that was the only thing that came up. And oh, go ahead.
Definitely a useful question, right? Because all these things like suss out some of the stuff that hasn't been formalized. So don't take a silence as like it wasn't a good thing, because it was definitely good to just get out.
Silence means
For
no
Open Ethereum
objection.
side, Open Ethereum side for Ropsten, we found one bug related to the Rust version, and our Docker images was built with all the Rust, and we recompiled that Docker images, and now we are fine. That was one hiccup on the Open Ethereum side regarding Ropsten.
Anything else from any of the other teams?
It's wild to see some of the chatter in the chat, because
And for Gordy,
they really
it seemed
think
to
that
go
us miners are
smoothly,
greedy.
but, you can come up there.
They're literally there as shills for 1559.
Oh yeah,
I believe that they are
No, our
specifically because there
validator is
are.
fine.
I mean, just look at
Ropsten
some of
Derby
the.
are fine, so we didn't see any problems.
I mean, it's just literally
also
like written from a
notably
script.
all validators were upgraded in just in time. So with the base fix deployed before the early forks, there were no issues. So none that I've seen.
And have we triggered at least like minimal versions of all the features on one or the other testnet?
I don't think we did.
Well, we must have triggered at least something on Ropsten for base U to break, right?
Robson was a fat finger. That was somebody trying to do Uniswap withdraw on Ropsten, and they got the call wrong. So that was lucky there for the most part. I have seen that there have been access list calls invoking access lists on Ropsten, so that feature has been exercised, both empty access lists and normal access lists. I haven't looked for any of the other specific calls related to the features.
I was thinking in the past of that testing method where apart from the standard test that we run outside of chain, that we can also always after the fork execute those features as transactions, as test transactions on every single testnet. But obviously it requires some work from us.
Yeah, I guess what is the hard part? Is it automating? I guess you need kind of the same accounts across all the networks that you can automate sending all these transactions from.
Are you asking why can't we just rerun the same test suite?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, what test suite?
So the standard test suite of the blockchain tests usually goes by setting up some state and then verifying the changes to that state. You cannot just send it to the network.
Exactly. Yeah, so there would have to be quite a lot of pre-work to actually set up the states in the way we want to put the test.
Just thinking about the set of tests when instead of requesting some specific behavior, we just prepare a set of transactions that use the thing, but don't. But the test set itself doesn't say what should happen. And just what should happen is that all the clients together should behave the same, and we can detect if there is any break, which means that we have a set of transactions that we generate that verify every single potential thing that we can think of.
So something I did for Robson is I just took some of the old transactions and resent them with access list. I think those are the transactions that Denno saw. So I think around 10,000 or 100,000 transactions or something that were just like old transactions from Robson. But yeah, in the future we could have some more meaningful transactions that actually like touch the code, the code that we want to test.
Yeah, anyway, as I see it, we have testnets where, like YOLO, we can send whatever and we have infinite funds. And we can do whatever kind of test cases, synthetic test cases we want. And the goal of having the Robston and Rinkeby is to see the like actual near mainnet usage in the more complex scenarios with everything that user does and don't do. So I don't know if it is worth deploying the synthetic tests on Robston if we already tested that on some earlier testing.
Got it. And in that case, I guess the value is like having almost like as much time as possible on the testnet so that people just use it and we see what they do basically.
Right. I mean the YOLO ones, they don't have to live very long.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I meant sorry, the public testnets. Yeah.
A week and we. Exactly.
Prior to Robston, do we have any proof of work test networks, like any of the YOLO test networks proof of work?
Nope.
Or is Robston the only place that we test anything proof of work until mainnet?
Yes.
Yep.
That would be the only argument I could think of for doing something special on, like something above and beyond on Robston. Otherwise, I agree with what Martin said.
Yeah, we don't bring any changes that are related to proof of work or click, so it's not like it's important in this particular case, unless we change difficulty behavior like we will do in London. But we should have absolute confidence to generate any synthetic tests on Robston now, so it's not like there is risk. We should all feel totally fine to generate any random transactions.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. And I guess there's the Rinkeby fork happening next week on the 24th. Is there anything we want to do kind of after the Rinkeby fork before the mainnet fork? We'll have like 2-3 weeks. Yeah. Is there anything we want to do there, or just kind of look at regular usage?
Advertising with community to test, show them what they can use, how the access lists work, encourage them to experiment with access lists. That would be great testing.
Okay.
Prepare people to understand what tooling they can use and how they need to change their tools.
That's a really good point, yeah. Yeah, I can follow up on that, yeah.
That may be a hard sell, since I don't think... It might be a hard sell because I don't think anyone actually cares about access lists. I mean, they exist basically to give an out to the set of contracts that may break, and we don't even know if any of those are like real things that people care about, or those... Like, we know, like, it's what, 3% of the things that Martin tested broke, but those might just be defunct contracts that no one touches.
So the design of access list provides gas savings for everyone who uses it, based on what I read in the design, which means that practically everyone can benefit from access lists, and it's a bit of a nudge toward the state economy.
I thought it didn't decrease gas costs. Like specifically.
So the way that EIP 2929 and 2930 work is that there's a gas cost of 2100 or 2600 if you access something dynamically, but if you pre-declared it an access list, it goes down to 1900 or 2400. And the longer term case for moving more people onto using access lists is that access lists allow us to do database access in parallel instead of doing them in series, which could potentially increase yield.
Am I incorrect that for most users, the gas cost will not actually change if they use an access list or not?
Yeah,
No, if they use an
incorrect.
access list, then every cold read will
All
cost
you
200
users
gas
out there,
watts.
you hear
so
that?
Right now it's very small.
Yes, it does not affect the fees.
Okay, that was my mistake.
That was awesome. Thank you, Micah.
Yeah, to making it clear to community, actually, if they start using access lists, they'll see gas savings.
Okay, yeah, I'll follow up on that and look up at what tools and whatnot they can use and how we can announce it. Yeah, next week. Is there anything else on Burden that people wanted to bring up? Otherwise, we can move on to the other parts.
They already brought up the most important thing. They're not fixing gas fees.
Okay. So I guess, yeah, just to give some background on kind of the rest of the agenda, which was pretty massive. Last call, we accepted 1559 and the difficulty bomb pushback into London. There's a couple EIPs that are directly related to 1559. So the gas refund stuff where there's different EIPs, the base fee opcode. Michael, who's joining on the call, has a proposal from the mining community to change the block reward if we were to see issues with the hash rate on the network. And then finally, there's a proposal to bring back the hard-coded block gas limit, which was originally part of 1559 but got removed. So all of these are kind of very closely related to London, and I think it makes sense to try and get to a decision on them sooner rather than later. And then there were another set of discussions around what should the scope of London be, given that it's happening quite soon because of the difficulty bomb, and similarly, what should the scope of Shanghai be? There were some conversations on that. I'm not sure how much we can get through on this call, but I think at the very least, if we can kind of resolve the London stuff, that'll be good because we can start actually implementing that and testing it. Yeah, so just a general context. And then at the end of the agenda, there was a lot of different EIPs that weren't related to London or to the stuff already in London. But I think it makes sense to kind of go through the stuff that's directly related to see how big London already is before we make decisions about anything else. And then the first one in those, so we started this on the last call. We only had 2 minutes to discuss it, so we didn't get into a lot of depth, was all the different alternatives with regards to removing the refunds from S-Store and self-destruct. So Vitalik had an original EIP 3298, and then I forget, William had 2 counter proposals, and then Vitalik put up yet another proposal this week, EIP 3403. So I guess it makes sense, either Vitalik or William, if you want to give just like a quick overview of what your EIPs are and what the goal is here.
I'm happy to start. So EIP 3298 was a very simple, bare bones kind of removal of all refunds. So including the self-destruct refunds and also including the refunds for S-Store clearing. There were some concerns mentioned in response to EIP 3298. So one of those concerns was that it would make a lot of use cases that go 0 to non-zero to 0 and kind of needlessly much more expensive. So one of those is mutex locks. So where contracts kind of flip a bit in storage before they make a call, so that when execution happens inside of the inner call, it can't re-enter the original contract. And the second is ERC20, approve and spend within a single transaction, where the storage slot that represents the approved amount starts off 0, then switches to something non-zero, and then switches right back to 0. And my proposal for both of that tries to at least address those concerns is to do a more restricted removal of refunds, where refunds stay in the one case where the original storage slot is 0, the current value is non-zero, and the new value is also 0. Right. So now the reasoning behind this more restricted approach is that it still satisfies two of the key goals of EIP 3298. So the one key goal is that it allows us, it preserves the kind of it also creates the invariance that the amount of gas execution has to actually be bounded by the block gas limit. Basically, because every 15,000 gas refund is kind of mapped to a 15,000 gas extra that was spent just to fill the slot. And so like basically the only gas that refunds can cancel is gas used within the same transaction that was used not for storage clear or not for execution, but for storage filling. So from a kind of DOS and execution time variance mitigation perspective, it still achieves their goals. And also it manages to make gas tokens non-viable because it's only like refunds can only refund gas that was spent to fill the exact same storage slot. So you can't use storage slots as a battery anymore. So yeah, that's EIP 3403.
Would it be correct to say that you are currently lobbying for 3403 and not 3298?
I definitely favor 3403 over 3298 at the moment. I think like in the much longer term, we should probably do further cleanups, but I feel like for London, like 3403 is just the minimal thing that achieves their goal.
William, I see you have your hand up, and you are the author of the two kind of other EIPs. So yeah, if you want to take a few minutes to give some background on that.
Yes, I'm currently supporting 3322, which is the explicit gas storage EIP. This has been proposed in the past. Both 3322 and 3403 fix gas token viability, at least as gas tokens currently are. The crux seems to be whether or not block elasticity from refunds is good or harmful. 1559 can make 2x, while refunds also already make 2x. But 1559 elasticity is strictly less than refund elasticity because it is bound by increases in the base fee, while the liquid refunds the liquid refund supply bounds the gas token elasticity. If we replaced refund elasticity with only base fee elasticity, we would see more congestion during peaks because having both is better. We'll need a lot more than 2x capacity during those peaks anyway. As discussed at the end of the last call, the network should be operating well below 4x capacity to ensure nodes can sync. DOS, on the other hand, is a problem of badly mispriced opcodes. DOS is usually the reason that 4x is considered bad. But the first opcode repricing from 150 followed a DOS event in 2016. But the opcodes changed by a lot more than 2x. Call was changed by 17.5%, balanced by 20x. The XT code 35x, and self-destruct went from 0 to non-zero. Refund elasticity has never caused such a problem and never will, not even on 4x. The urgency of refund changes seems to be originate around perceived gas token storage bloat, but the supply of gas tokens has actually declined more than 50% in the last 3 months. Empty blockchains are having a much bigger problem with this than Ethereum. Despite only existing for about a month, there's already 40 times more chi on Binance Smart Chain than on Ethereum. I think removing refunds will bloat the state a lot more in the long run. Despite 4203's handling of one case, there'd be no incentive to zero out token balances and allowances in most cases due to the 20,000 cost of S-Store set. When wallets and protocols build for an EVM without refunds, the state will grow much faster than ever before. But I believe the bloat is addressed by 3322. By providing a more efficient alternative, we can expect to supplant the current inefficiency and waste with explicit gas storage. Thank you.
Technical question. I don't really get it. Is there supposed to be a gas refund counter in the state of an account?
Yes, 3322 proposes to put a gas token counter in the account, though one alternative might be a built-in precompiled as an ERC20 that would store this.
You're getting all this, Nem, right? You're understanding everything, right?
No, some of this is a little above my pay grade.
Yeah.
But it sounds like
do you expect
they're
that it will
talking
lead
about
to
having
lower,
a way to be able to just
of the
tell
gas
where the gas
price?
fee is
Because
before
like
you send
people
it.
will now have easier mechanism to explicitly store the
Because
gas
they're
into
talking
the
about
account.
fucking, and then they're talking about
Yes.
storage, so you can like get a refund of gas fee.
3322.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, this is all
I mean,
linked.
maybe
I
you
may
think
end up
it's
going
small,
down the
but
rabbit
it's
hole
in
again.
fact extremely large
Right.
because it touches the consensus encoding of an account in the try. Even if I supported it, which I don't, I think it will be totally out of scope for London.
I concur.
Can it be merged with a proposal from AXIC to limit the account bonds, so that we have now
Well, the proposal from AXIC
24
doesn't-
bytes principal space, something like this?
The proposal from AXIC about limiting the account nonce is a no-op. Because the account nonce will never go above 64, even 64 anyway, on mainnet.
Yeah. So, but there is something like, well, it's still 32 byte in the storage.
I think it's
as far as I
isn't it
remember.
RLP encoded?
Yep.
Oh my god.
I think it's RLP
Some
encoded,
dude's
so
like,
we
I'm
strip
selling
off
all
those 0
my
bytes
ETH
already.
if there's
Yes,
any
more or less.
consensus.
Just
to the
before we get
miners.
into the weeds, I see Thomas and Piper have.
It's
their
like,
hands
please,
up.
please sell it, all of it now. Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So internally, I don't think it's something bad about this 3302 proposed Riven gas token. I always consider those solutions to be actually quite interesting and good response to the market volatility around gas prices. I definitely think that it's not a good idea to just push it straight away with London because of its complexity. I would love us to look a bit more at this, but also like to ask for a bit more up-to-date and detailed analysis of the actual numbers, because some of those numbers were set here with a lot of confidence, but I seem to be referring to the very old events, maybe not that relevant. So it'd be great to refresh that and prepare a better, clear motivation for the subcode. Also, in a way, those markets were created in response to how protocol behaved, and now we suggest of changing the protocol to support those markets. So it's the other way around approach. So we have to understand that this motivation is still relevant, and EIP 1559 does introduce this like short-term capacity burst solutions. So they would serve similar thing. We have to analyze it further.
Piper?
Yes. So, William, one of the things that you said in there seemed to hinge on the idea that by removing refunds, we will be removing incentives to clear state and thus causing state bloat to be a bigger problem. And I want to push back on this concept because I don't think that refunds and state clearing incentives have actually, I don't have numbers to back this up, but I do not think that those incentives have actually resulted in any significant reduction in state bloat or improvement in people clearing state. And right now, the direction that we're looking at for protocol development is basically to say, not clearing the state isn't a problem because we're looking at expiring cold state. So I think that under that model, keeping refunds doesn't actually make sense because we're not looking at a mechanism that's effective at reducing state bloat anyways. So I just wanted to push back on that specific point. Yeah, that's it.
I
concur.
A response to that.
I concur with this.
Just to briefly mention one more point there, I do think it is like I think it seems like all people agree that this is just too too
Hey, Mr.
too
Voscoin is
early in the
on,
process to be
is in the
considered
chat.
for London. But I think more long term it is interesting just to think about like the gas limit serving like of course this dual purpose of kind of like limiting the processing time for blocks, but then also limiting the state growth. And of course ideally those should be like in like both at the same kind of like limiting size, but as long as they aren't, I think something like this proposal that would shift kind of like throughput towards the times of higher demand would make sense where the limiting factor is the purely the state growth, right? Because then the state growth on average still is the same. Whereas if the limiting factor is the block processing times, then of course, like a proposal like this just doesn't make sense at all. So just wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, but just one more kind of comment on long-term economics in the context of at least the current proposed state expiry roadmaps. One kind of important technical nuance of these approaches is that it will actually likely not be possible to have a concept of setting a storage slot back to being empty. Like basically, the reason being that in the context of these storage or state expiry revamps, a storage slot being empty is just assumed by the mechanism to mean that that storage slot had not been accessed yet, and so you should go check in earlier state trees to see what the most recent value was. And so what's going to have to happen is that we'll need to have basically emptiness and zero be represented by different values. And when that happens, I think removing refunds completely will be okay because these 0 to 1 to 0 use cases, basically as soon as something has gone away from being 0 1, that storage slot is
EIP
turned on,
3368
and then everything after that is
gas fee.
Just modifying an existing storage slot. But basically just because of that, there would be
people don't understand. What's interesting is the original guy that was talking a lot is now gone, and now this keeper's way is now in.
But it would actually be useless.
Think there's any coincidence there?
Right.
Okay, so as
He's
to
saying the same things the other guy was saying.
The point about storage currently not being incentivized enough, or perhaps it not being effective, I would counter that it's effective at encouraging inter-transaction 0 to 1, 1 to 0 behavior and design at the top level. When protocols design this in interfaces, they're more likely to encourage, for example, users to approve exactly the amount that they're going to need, rather than infinite. And the difference is that you will always have this approval in this case, but it could be a balance or any other kind of storage, just because there's no reason to remove it if you're accessing it between different transactions. Since the incentive is there, you're more likely to build it that way, and the incentive is important for that reason. If, as Vitalik and another mentioned, in the future, there's actually no benefit to removing storage, and they'll just be removed anyway, then I can see a world in which we wouldn't want refunds because it would be complex, and we already have some other complexity addressing the issue, but that's in a future that is not London. Thank you.
Yeah, Artem, I think you've been waiting for a while to speak.
Yes, I think of these four proposals, the original one, 3298, is the simplest and the most straightforward. Therefore, we should just go with it.
I'm doing a live stream right now.
Thanks. Denkrad, Alex, anything you want to add?
I wanted to add to the economic argument, of smoothing, long-term gas long-term. I think, actually, EIP 1559 will already do a better job at that because it allows gas futures and options markets. And I think we should rely on that rather than on trying to transfer stored gas into the future.
Thanks. And Alex? Oh, I see you put your hand down.
Okay.
So I guess there's a few comments in the chat and what people have. Oh, sorry, Alex.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I wanted to get a clarification from Vitalik that if later on with the state ramp mechanism or state verification, empty slot and
my
explicit zero will be
office
encoded
calling me,
differently.
going, you're missing your appointment. I'm like, oh
is it
shit,
expected
I'm
that
live streaming.
having more empty slot and not having to take care or history of zero slots will give some benefits to users, or any estimate in this direction?
Not sure I understand the question well. The point of that entire mechanism is to past state expire automatically if it doesn't get touched in some period of time, like a year. And so, like,
It's about that if I have a lot of state cells which are 0, that I ideally wouldn't want to care about them.
Right.
Kind of.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
If it wasn't worked on, then it's fine. But I think maybe then having empty slot and 0 slot being the same may be beneficial.
No, the reason why they have to be different just has to do with these kind of really subtle nuances where, like, if in the past the most recent value of some storage slot was 5, but then you change it to 0, then like the fact that it was changed to 0 has to be stored, because if the fact that it was changed to 0 was not stored, then the system would kind of walk back to the most recent value, and so it would think the storage value is still.
Okay, well, yeah. Proving emptiness is the same as proving non-existence in this case. Yeah, sure.
So, just to take a step back here, like, it seems, I guess, as I understand it, William, you're kind of advocating for your 3332 proposal over the other one you had, Vitalik for the 3403, even though it's a bit more complex than the original 3298 one. I guess maybe just like on the client side, does anybody feel like 3322 could be realistically done for London? And yeah, let's start there, because that seemed to be the general feeling that no.
Yeah, I would say no. Regarding the complexity of 3403, I implemented it yesterday, and I posted on the All Collective chat a table summarizing the changes for some particular scenarios. And of course, yes, 3298 is a bit more trivial, but 3403 is still trivial to implement.
I love that last comment by Vosk. To be blunt, Keeper's Way, literally no one wants your advice on anything, especially mining.
Yes.
It does not.
3403, I think, is forward compatible with everything.
Fucks.
Yeah.
I mean, he has had it with all of this crap.
Does any client's opinion change at all for 3322 if it was moved to a precompile instead of an opcode for the storage, or sorry, instead of the account? So where the data is stored, is that the critical piece, or is it other bits?
So if we want to make a drastic, a pretty large change in what kind of data we store for an account, I can think of more valuable things to use that mechanism for than to have these guys playing games, personally.
Oh, that's right. Do we currently, no precompiles actually have storage, is that correct? They're all pure?
Correct. They're all pure, yes.
Okay, so even if we moved to precompile, that would still potentially introduce complexity.
It will still need to be in a state somewhere. It will bubble up in a try or somewhere. Yeah, it's pretty large change.
So I guess that Geth clearly feels it's a pretty large change. Thomas has echoed the same thing, and we could potentially do it for Shanghai. Does anyone kind of disagree with that, to like potentially considering it for a future fork but not having it in London?
Yeah, I don't think we should even consider 3322 at all. And honestly, I think this is the prime example of like an illustration of what we discussed, that before EIPs can be considered, there should be a ready-made implementation for the major clients.
Okay. Fair enough. I guess, does anybody disagree with that? Not necessarily like the specific threshold, like I think that's a separate conversation, but just like about 3322.
I agree.
Okay. And Open Ethereum, any thoughts?
Yeah, we agree.
Okay.
Introducing new opcodes and introducing new state in the state tree seems like a big change.
Okay.
Out of scope
Yeah.
for them.
So then we're kind of down to 3298 and 3403. I'm curious, like Martin, you said 3403 was not too complicated to implement. Does anyone else have thoughts, I guess, on the client side between the two?
No, it seems simple. I think the only benefit of not going with 3403 is that the other one removes the refund entirely. So for any potential new implementations, it would make EVM simpler, but we can do that later if we decide to. So 3403 is better.
Oh, if, according to this one guy, if you use a brokerage for mining, you're
I can
not a
agree
real
with
miner
that.
anymore. Only real miners will mine Ethereum directly. It's like, so you're talking about the big mining farms like
yeah,
Genesis,
no,
right?
I just wanted to give the kind of
thing I
long-term
ever heard.
strategic comments that if we ever want to do changes to the account structure, then a good time to do that might be when we do the state expiry and stateless list changes, and we switch to Verkle trees, because with the switch to Verkle trees, we have the opportunity to move to a more kind of pure key value and a single layer system, which would make it very easy to just kind of add on whatever new slots you want, because they're pretty much already, like, there's already
Got it. So is there a consensus to bring 3403 into London then? And I guess on the previous call, we had consensus to bring something about refunds in London to help deal with the increased block size of 1559. It seems like people prefer 3403. Does anyone disagree with bringing 3403 into London?
I'm a big fan of 3403, though I'm not a fan of bringing it in for that particular reason. I am very unconvinced that we need it for London. I think it's an awesome thing to include, and I would love to have it. I don't think we need it for London with the introduction of 1559. I think 1559 going into London without this would be totally fine.
I agree with Micah.
Martin, did you say that you implemented this one and that it was relatively straightforward?
Yes, I posted on the on the old Cordev channel the commit for gas, very small. I'd also like to mention, so there are two things. One is that I'm not sure if the actual we might want to modify the refund size in 3403 to make the 010 case identical to the 121 case, which is currently a bit cheaper. What was the other thing I want to mention is that currently we have a problem with the gas token problem is that any mining pool and a lot of miners fill their blocks with mining chai tokens and filling the state. We can fix that if we remove or make refunds not carrying across transaction and across blocks. And I think it was Peter, who is not on the call today, but he mentioned that if we're going to do 1559, we should / need to also do something about the refunds, because 1559 has these, you can temporarily have a lot more gas and block processing being performed during the block. And with refunds and refund burning, the effect will be even further magnified, which would be a security concern. So I think that's the kind of tie between 1559 and refunds.
Yeah, that's also.
Does Peter or you have data on that? Like, I've heard that argument made many times, but like every time we try to push on it, it's kind of it's very fuzzy. I would like to get much harder data, personally.
I don't know. I mean, you can have double the block size, and you can also burn refunds.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the argument being that we are not currently constrained by block processing time. Like, that is not a real issue, unless the average processing time goes up. And 1559 doesn't change the average processing time, and even gas tokens don't actually change the average processing time because they end up getting burned later in theory. Or sorry, let me rephrase that last part. Gas tokens change state growth, but the average state growth doesn't change because they're later burned. And processing time is basically the same as any other gas you spend. And so I'm not convinced that we need to care about individual blocks being up to 4x as big, because I don't think that's a real problem we have right now.
So there could, I don't know how I can explain that well, but if a client...
We don't have to do it on this call. I would just like, it comes up repeatedly. So I'd like to see something more solid at some point.
Right, and it's kind of hard to show, but in the code, in the gas client, or I guess whatever client, there is a difference if you are executing 400 transactions or if you're executing 200 transactions. There is journaling there. I mean, yeah. I'm sorry, I can't really.
Okay. We can take this offline, but it's something that keeps coming up, and I would really like to see it handled or more addressed more thoroughly.
So I guess based on that, Thomas, you have a comment about saying that you would want to keep London clean with just 1559 in the difficulty bomb, and that maybe 3403 should be scheduled for Shanghai. I don't know. What do people feel is the
yeah, Nefarious, all the village idiots are in chat.
Just try
oh my god, well, specifically electricity works,
about the different approaches and
Scrooge, McDuck,
if you want something in.
Keeper's Way,
and Micah, whatever. Yeah, those are the four. I mean, those guys, it's only those four.
Yep.
Right, and I guess the sub-question of like what number the refunds should be set to, and because Martin mentioned, like,
okay, so I guess maybe we can, and because the implementation is also quite small, as you said, Martin, I think it's not the end of the world if we decided on the next call to include 3403.
You'd think Vital could at least get a decent.
What we can do is just have maybe conversation async about what the impact is on clients of these blocks that are I guess 4 times as big, and you know whether 3403 helps there, and the kind of additional complexity it adds to London. Does that make sense, or do people feel? I guess I don't feel like we have kind of enough consensus to make a decision now, but do people feel differently from that?
I think it'd be nice if we said we want to do 3403 and not the other ones, but whether it's London or Shanghai is an open question, and like narrow the scope of the discussion considerably.
Although I would say, just from a risk aversion point of view, I think it's better at least to think about the EIP as like addressing a security concern. And so unless like we are completely certain that 4x block times are fine, I think the default should be that it's in London, unless within the next couple of weeks we are like absolutely convinced that it's not necessary, at which point it might still be a nice feature, but then it's a feature discussion. I think for now it should remain a security concern discussion.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that too.
This fits into the EVM graveyard category as well as just the direction that we want to go in general with the EVM, right?
It does. It's like both EVM graveyard and security.
So I guess maybe just
in
on the
that
security
context,
side,
I'm supportive of it since it's simple.
And on the security side, like obviously, Martin, you raised kind of some concerns. I'm curious, like, what do other clients feel? Is this also something you see as a security concern?
I feel is very close to what Ansgar is saying, and that we generally should. It would be a great success if we could define today that London is predefined as this two EIPs, the difficulty bomb and EIP 1559. And then maybe I would just change from what Ansgar suggested to default, by default have free 403. I would suggest by default not have it, but actually promise that we start working on it to analyze if it's needed for security, but as soon as that it comes in Shanghai and only if it's really needed, then push it forward a bit.
So, one other thing is that like this is going a bit further on into the agenda, but I think some of us want to propose that Shanghai should be only the merge.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah, and that is definitely another can of worms. So I guess, okay, let's maybe keep like thinking through 3403, whether I guess it's default.
That's
default
interesting.
Out.
Did you just hear that?
A big difference over the next 2 weeks.
Did you just hear that?
Because I suspect all the client teams
Vitalik
anyway,
just said he wants Shanghai to be the merge.
Need to implement a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, wow.
That's 6 months.
London, like we're not
Yeah,
at the
that
point where
is.
we can set up a YOLO network.
That's a bomb.
So yeah, I think it makes sense to like client.
I didn't even realize that.
Make a decision
Oh, wow.
about that on the next call.
Yeah.
And just to move forward because we have a lot of kind of other EIPs to go over.
Yeah, somebody else
any
just
final
heard it
comments
and
on
put
that,
it in
or is
chat.
everyone fine to move forward?
We could just move 3403 to consider for inclusion, and then that I think would be a
Which,
the
by
way
the
to
way,
formalize
that
it.
just gives all more the
Let's get the
reason to do
EIP actually
3368.
into an EIP.
Yeah.
It's currently just an idea. It's
You're
not even a
talking
draft
about
yet.
paying miners
So
for
let's
another
get
3
an
months.
EIP, move it to CFI.
Yeah.
So we don't run
Why
into.
the hell wouldn't you? Just to make sure that there aren't any
So get the
issues. It's
EIP
not gonna
finished.
be-
Like someone needs to finish writing it,
talking about another
and then once it
1% of
actually
it,
is an
that's all.
EIP, then get it into review,
Yeah.
then get it into CFI, so we don't end up with problems like we've had in the past with, things that are still just like ideas on a piece of napkin, and we're like, oh, is it considered for inclusion?
Okay. Yeah, and we can definitely do that over the next 2 weeks, and then discuss it on the next call.
Yeah, it should only take like a day.
Okay. So next one, I think this one should be a bit quicker. Base fee opcode EIP 3198. Basically to add an opcode to query the base fee. There was some concerns that were brought in on the last call regarding it. Vitalik posted a comment in the issue to kind of address those. Basically that the opcode doesn't provide gas observability in the same way as looking at how much gas internal execution costs. It just shows you how much what was the minimum gas price.
Some dude in the chat's like, welfare talks.
loss.
Yes, service providing is welfare.
I don't know. Does,
Wow.
any comments or
Yeah, I
comments
think
on
There's somebody who doesn't
I would be
understand
both the
proof of
person
work.
that would use it extensively in some
understand
projects,
life.
and also
Yeah.
the person that knows that it's not critical
Lots
to
of
be
people
introduced
need-
straight
what
away.
do we have
I'm
in this
like,
United
it's
States?
a
70%?
simple opcode, very
75%
basic,
of our
very
economy
needed.
is service
It doesn't
based?
introduce
Yeah.
the gas observability about
I mean,
the
he
gas
just basically
progress.
insulted
It's a different type.
75%
It's
of the
similar to
citizens of
the gas
America.
price opcode, which is
Wow.
the transaction environment or transaction context observability. We have lots of those, and they never caused any trouble really. And yeah, I'm like as few things as possible in London, just to make sure that London is simple. And this one should come straight after. And it's a very simple opcode, but even this would just be one more thing to think of.
I think this again overlaps with the discussion that is scheduled as the next big item on the agenda, the kind of the scoping for London and Shanghai, because if it turns out that Shanghai might be merge only and it might only arrive, let's say, late this year or early next year, then any new feature fork after London might be mid to late 2022. And so under such a scenario, I think something as simple as the base fee opcode might be nice to have before like the 24 months horizon.
Yeah. Okay. So let's maybe come back to this one in the same way as 3403. The next one. So this one will probably be a bit longer again. So Michael Carter, aka Bitsby Tripping, is on the call. So basically, there's been a lot of conversations with miners about the impact of 1559.
Well, I had that one right on target. I said it'd be an hour into the call.
Models with regards to miner revenue and how 1559 would impact that. And 3368 was his proposal. That should potentially go alongside 1559, depending on the network conditions, I believe. So maybe it makes sense, Michael, for you to just take a few minutes to walk us through, like, the proposal and I guess specifically the kind of scenarios you've considered and the one where you think this proposals would make the most sense.
Hopefully he remembers to unmute.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity to talk briefly about it. And before I jumped in, I wanted to take about 10 seconds to, apologize to the Ethereum developers in the community over the last few weeks of the tension that was created around some of the language that was used when we talked to show of force around EIP 1559. As a miner and educator and becoming a participant, even well before Ethereum in 2011, I've been very passionate around the proof of work concepts and a mining advocate in the scene. I think that passion in this rare occasion caused a less than ideal message when it came to the risk of the fee burn if particular conditions occurred. When talking about the specific EIP, the first iteration, as I would call it, is just trying to address an existential risk that I believe is an unlikely scenario, but if we had a precipitous fall of price along with the yield burn, we would have a potential issue when it comes to the size of pie of the growth of, because of the success of Ethereum and the crypto ecosystem in general, has brought up a huge amount of participants, about 2.5 times what the current previous all-time high was when it comes to yield. Make no mistake, I know what this EIP looks like. It looks like a money printer goes brr, but I think at least from a conversation standpoint, we can look at a pragmatic approach when ensuring that all circumstances up into that merge, that we have ETH security as paramount. Having a solution, to address a large hash drop, not just because of market conditions. There's also a scenario that has, maybe a hybrid type of issue where you have another proof of work coin come in and start, peeling some of that dominance away, with the understanding that, ETH is moving to a place of proof of stake. That's a known state, right? I guess bottom line, the upfront, inflation risk with a tell-off that brings the same emission over 2 years. Given the the flip of moving the merge closer, probably isn't as tenable now because it wouldn't have that same emission rate now over a 2-year period. I've also, not only is this optional, but there's also maybe a discussion that we can have. We'll take this obviously offline, but implementing something like MESS, like the multiple exponential subjective scoring, or something else that allows and protects against any kind of reorg or double spend, which is the primary concern here. So if emission is just against the monetary policy, which makes complete sense, the formation of this EIP was to ensure that the emission rating would be the same amount of emission over a period of time, but in a shortened schedule. I understand that doesn't make sense. I'll open up to the floor to see some other tenable solutions that I have no problem at all helping to champion in this regard.
Thomas, yeah, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so I think that just the idea of starting the conversation around the block reward and how it binds to the Ethereum price fluctuation, Ether price fluctuation, it's relevant. I mean, it's important. However, I don't think that just by changing it to 3 or 4, or just defining any change now makes sense without understanding how you want to have it in the long term. Ideal solution would be binding the move of ETH price with the security payout in a block reward sense. I think the MEV solutions that enter the market now, the price of Ether provide a lot of payout to the security providers, to miners, and this doesn't seem necessary, but the conversation around it is necessary, and it's important to talk about it and to think
just an extra
how are we
10%.
prepared
That's
to act
it.
very quickly if the price happens to drop 10 times, for example. How do we quickly ensure that this excessive mining power that appears during the times of the high gas price is not used to just do the quick gain by attack on the network.
Mika?
Am I correct in understanding, Michael, that this proposal is you want to have it ready in case there's a problem, but if everything stays exactly as it is, you do not believe it is necessary today? Like, if we were to do London tomorrow, you don't think it's necessary, but you think that we should be prepared if the environment changes by July. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, yeah. And the modeling that was done, even rudimentary as it was, it took effectively 10 different scenarios, 3 of which started to create an instance where you could have a precipitous drop. And so in the unlikeliness of it happening, having it to go in mandatory, I think is premature. I don't think that it makes any sense at all, to be honest with you. But it is about having the fact that ETHASH in general is not protected against this type of situation, and the scripts and the know-how on how to implement has been proven in the system. And it's really just a stop guard, and to have something because of this process of going through and how quick could the community react if this was to occur like over a week period. What's the flash to bang, and having something in the back pocket that could be implemented I think is pivotal, especially as we start to get up to the merge.
James?
In the context of having it ready if something was to happen, I'd say like reducing the year decay to like a year, the time decay, and then also noting that the value might need to be different depending on the actual event that happens. But it's a good option. It's good to think these things.
That's what I want to hear. I want to hear the
option
value and the timing may
when
need
we
to
need it
change.
ready.
So we're having a discussion around that, as opposed to
agree with
arguing
that,
whether or
like,
not it goes into
Michael,
effect or
talked
not.
a bunch over the past week, and I think my view on it as someone who's worked on 1559 over the past year is obviously there's a ton of things that could go wrong. The network could get attacked and stuff like that, and I'm personally not in favor of pre-committing to a specific solution. I think if something goes wrong, then different problems have different types of solutions. Like the case where miners, obviously there's not enough hash rate on the network. A simple solution there is increasing the block reward, but if something else goes wrong, then there's a different solution to that problem. So I think it makes sense to generally keep in our back pocket. I don't know, Alex, Thomas, you also have comments? Or Danny, I see you coming on and off mute.
I would like to clarify for understanding of the claim that the mining power, which has increased during the bull runs and high gas prices, can be later on used to attack the network in case if the Ethereum price goes down and gas prices go down. Now, when at least I'm not aware of any highly popular coins with ETHASH, and with most of the mining power now coming from ASICs, what would be a logical reason for
you hear that too? Alex is like most of them
maybe doesn't work and not used right now, and use it to decrease the value of something which you could have earned with this ASIC, but you don't do right now. So it will be it can only be used by someone from outside of the network. And
ASICs, according to, is 10% of the network. It's irrelevant to the conversation.
But he's saying it's majority of the network.
The same probability can happen in any case.
I'm not saying it's 10%, but it is not the majority of the network.
I still believe that we are very, very safe at this stage. And also, we have a much, much simpler tool than this EIP that is proposed. It's just changing the reward without any long-term decay or anything. It's something that we can introduce very quickly. I believe the difficulty of such a change is even lower than changing the difficulty bump numbers. It's one-line change, very easy testable, can be agreed on very quickly and introduced to the network probably within 2 or 3 weeks with all the agreements. I might be slightly too slow for the economic reaction, but at the same time, we don't expect this.
Can be agreed upon very quickly. Yeah, I beg to differ with that statement.
We have tools. We should have conversation, but we have tools. It's not like we are totally.
So the reason why I was kind of shushing on the Alex thing is that he's showing how little the devs know about the mining environment.
Right.
And it's not his job. I don't fault him, and he's asking questions.
It's
Right.
important to increase that now, and then it should be decaying to the previous number. And that decay, I don't think is justified by anything else than trying to make the CFP to look a bit less less permanent, and so be accepted more likely.
Cool. And Danny?
I'd say, first of all, I don't think that it's probably good for a blockchain protocol in the long run to be manually manipulating kind of monetary policy over and over again. I think that's probably really easy to be captured. I think there is a little bit of a precedent here because of the block reward reductions and because we are moving to proof of stake, which is fundamentally modifying that policy. But I think in the long term, I don't think it's a healthy kind of path to go down. But that said, for this particular and these types of proposals, like kind of a reactionary proposal to increase block rewards in the event of an attack or in the event of price drop, I think that it's probably naive to assume that doing that type of manual work on the protocol would not have an impact or potentially have an impact on price. I don't think you can isolate it and say, okay, Ether's worth $100 right now, we can increase the block reward by 10x and think that that isn't going to have any sort of tangible impact on price. I think that obviously price, value, and the relationships between those things, the relationships between we do and things that other people in the community do is not known. But I don't think that I think that you could have a negative impact there, and so you could even backfire by increasing block rewards and potentially having, creating FUD and that kind of stuff. So it might actually backfire with respect to security. Just something to think about. I would say though, don't make a habit out of meddling with monetary policy and get to proof of stake and kind of have stability.
Thank you.
Well, his point was a little bit different though. He's saying that even if we put 3368 into effect, that it could have a negative impact and actually cause a security risk.
Agree
He's making that point as well.
To any kind of
the last
adjustment
part.
in
It's
reward
like don't mess with the
incentive,
monetary policies.
I think has a weird effect on how it can affect price, not in such a linear way that it could be driven by news or anything like that, and would have potentially the risk of effect on that. When getting this proposal put together, having that emission schedule to be the same amount of emission was to try to address, if there was a precipitous drop, that it could, elevate enough that kept the this, I wouldn't call it the status quo, but about where the network has been over the last 12 months. When you look at not just peak times, but just the average block reward where it's been around a little over 3. And you can run that back since May. And so that's where the 3 came from. And then the tailing off of that, as we got to emerge, was to ensure that, if it took it gave a 2-year window, if that needed to move, it was, it could do that. I think understanding not just the reaction from the community, but just in general, when we mess with monetary policy, there may be other better approaches when it comes to addressing the security issue, and just take some of the lessons learned from some of the other networks where they've had to really deal with this, like with regards to they've had impacts, so that if this is too untenable, from a protection standpoint, having maybe a corresponding EIP that's in the thread, such as MES or deep gravity well, or something that allows a a protection, as it were, to a reorg, may be more tenable to it, and it addresses the issue. But yeah, we can take that one offline.
So I guess just in the interest of time to kind of.
But again, they
summarize,
hate complicated
I think
solutions, and that's a
everybody
much
agrees
more
it's a problem,
complicated
you know,
solution than
we
than this EIP.
addressing it. Obviously, there's kind of disagreement about what the best way is and what the second order effects are of doing such a thing. It seems to me like nobody's advocating to put 3368 into London as
And
is.
that's the point. You can't come to a quick
so
decision if there's a security risk because you have these arguments.
Right.
People are watching and kind of try to interpret the decisions out of this. So does anyone disagree with this? That we can obviously address any problem with 1559 once it comes up. Issuance is one potential solution, which might have unintended consequences, and that for now we can.
This is why I don't like. Tim is basically stating what his opinion is and asking everybody else to agree with him because he's the leader. That's where I have a problem instead of just asking for what people's opinions are.
Right. Hopefully we can do this in just a few minutes and keep kind of 10 minutes.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing. There you go. That makes me mad.
The last kind of 1559 related concern for London.
Just like that.
The idea around
that little statement.
Block gas limit.
Yep.
So the original spec of 1559 hard-coded the block gas limit.
All the discussion before that was good.
Up to a 2x of 16 million.
But then he just dismissed it.
Over the last year, as we worked on 1559, we removed that part of the spec, so to leave the block limit under 1559 controlled by miners as it is today. The main reason for that was just separation of concerns. 1559 was already a big change, and this seemed like a kind of somewhat unrelated change to bring in the same EIP. Then over the past few weeks, there's been some conversations about some potential concerns where under 1559, if miners get a tip to compensate for their uncle risk and their node operations, then their incentives to grow their block size increase, because if all the miners' nodes are more expensive to run, then the tips will just go up and they'll be compensated, but most other participants of the network will not be. So there was an EIP put together again this week, as Micah would say, kind of a back of the envelope idea, which basically brings back the idea of hard coding the block gas limit alongside 1559, mostly to avoid the scenario where like miners are overly incentivized to grow the block size. And I think Phil from Horizon Labs was the author of it, but Light Client wanted to discuss it on the call quickly. So do you want to give a quick overview and then we can take comments?
I think, the title really basically says it all. It's just setting the block gas limit to a hard-coded value. It should be backwards compatible. We're not going to remove it from the block header. It's just going to remove the ability and the consensus logic for the gas limit to go up and down. I think the fraction is 1024. So that's about 0.1% per block. So it just removes that, and it requires every block to have the gas limit set to 12.5 million.
What's going on, J-Man? Hey, what's going on, living our destiny?
I think we historically never seen any bad action from miners on this parameter, and on the other
And it
way,
will be
we've
interesting
seen
living our
actually,
destiny for
very
sure.
helpful cooperation on this number during the Shanghai attacks, I believe. I may be wrong here, but the gas limit was brought down just to make the network much safer in the short term. Also, this introduces
It's interesting. Like I said, I really wanted to look at their internal chat because I don't think they really realize that that's on the screen.
Just any other conversation
but
with this
Alex's
single
comment that
parameter
says this
being
sounds like a
attached
naive direction to
is
investigate,
much
but
more
also a
balanced
huge chicken and the
because
egg
it says
problem.
miners
I
can,
didn't see the exact time that
react
came
to
up, but I
the
think
very
that was
adverse
related to
conditions when they detect
3368.
those.
Right.
And we have to stay aware of it.
But yet he didn't speak
to
up
understand
because
it.
Tim's a
But there
leader,
is this one
and
parameter
Tim was
that
very
may
clear on the
change,
direction he wanted to
protect
take.
Oh,
against
yeah.
some
So it's
network
not a
events.
consensus, and anybody who says it's governance, it's not
Actually
governance.
strongly
No,
opposing this
it's
change,
influence,
and we
power,
prefer to leave it
and right
in
now
the
Tim
hands
has the power.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Tim's a bad guy. Tim's a good guy, he just has his
I was,
opinions, but the problem is
about
that he
to say
basically
exactly
shut
the
down
same
others'
thing. I think
opinions.
miners have historically
That's
done
what I
an
have a problem
excellent
with.
job of governing the gas limit. And also, I think the portion of the tips that would not go down with a higher gas limit is fairly small. So, just economically, that incentive doesn't seem to me to be too huge.
May I remind you that miners
Oh,
also run nodes.
they took it up. Up there.
And
It's back.
if miners
Yay.
are able to process larger blocks, then we should let them. The network should scale at the first possible opportunity.
Hey, took it off and put it back
Because,
on.
decentralization and everything is good, but 100% bucks gas fees are not, and they are much worse for the network.
Michael, I think you had your hand up next, and then Danny.
That was left up from the previous conversation.
No worries. Danny?
Yeah, I'd just say the miner is a different type of economic actor on the network. Obviously, they can afford to have much more robust machines. Miners could even have very, very sophisticated machines. And so this parameter isn't only tuned for that type of participant. I don't think we should forget that. I will say, though, the threat of removing it is something that we can kind of keep in our back pocket, and maybe removing it doesn't really need to happen today, unless it were abused.
And one comment on that, I assume this also could be removed by a soft fork, right? Like, because in the case where miners abuse it, obviously they won't upgrade to a new hard fork, which removes it. But we could have all the other nodes on the network refuse blocks beyond a certain size, and that could be done basically without miners' support, right? Like, so if there was a case where we needed to deploy this as kind of a response, contrarily to like a bunch of other changes, we don't necessarily need miners to adopt it. James Artem?
Some more forcing governance.
I think
raised
okay, cool. That it's true that miners have been great and they're so far.
Yeah, living our destiny. He's like,
I agree with
talking about
Dalek's
the
point,
fees
and,
being high proof of stake, and it's like, yeah, whenever they
do
go to
like
proof
in
of stake
general
and the
that
fees are still high,
that over time
the devs are
shoring
going to
up
look bad at that
the
point because they
incentives
solved
and promises
nothing
for the network, right? Makes sense, and that the people who most understand the nuances of state growth and those things should really be the ones that are deciding this until that's no longer a problem. And so I would say we should go with some kind of
Living Destiny. They're kicking the
limit,
fee can
but
down
maybe
the
it doesn't
road.
need to be for
They'll
London.
worry about it later. It's the type of deal that they're doing right at this point.
Just a general idea.
They're making the miners look like garbage, saying it's our
Actually,
fault.
those same people who understand the best, they also drown in the awkward devs bureaucracy. And given that all our, the nearest hard forks are reserved for E1559 or the merge, we will never get the chance to increase the hard cap.
So I guess this was originally brought up as kind of a security concern related to 1559. Does anyone feel strongly that this should come in 1559 in London alongside 1559 to kind of address a security issue? And I think if no one feels strongly about that, maybe it makes sense to just have the next 5 minutes for the merge conversation. Okay, so not included alongside 1559 for now in London. So we just have 6 minutes left. I don't think we can resolve this, but I think there's been a lot of conversations about Shanghai and the merge. So to kind of summarize quickly, we've wanted to keep London kind of lean in terms of an upgrade for a few reasons. The first is that 1559 is already a pretty huge change, and the second is that it is going to have to be done quickly in parallel to the Berlin work, which is the first time we've done this. So every extra bit of complexity we add in London is kind of has a fairly high cost. So I think it was right after the last call, Thomas proposed that we should just start having planning for Shanghai kind of soon, so that if we have good ideas, we can kind of move them to Shanghai right now and kind of free up London to 1559 and have Shanghai happen shortly after. In parallel to that, over the past week or two, there's been a lot of conversations about the state of the ETH1 to ETH2 merge, and the Vitalik has put up a proposal where we could have a greatly simplified merge that would still require a fairly large amount of work on the ETH1 side. So another approach is to have London be the last kind of feature fork.
Look at their
and
chat.
Then to have
Thomas is proposing it to be in Cancun, the merge in Cancun, and that Shanghai would still be in October.
Oh shit.
So I'll stop here. I see a bunch of people already have their hands up. Thomas, I think you were first, and then Danny.
Yeah, so my proposition was to, since we see some simple EIPs that would be very proper for London, but we want to make sure that London has no delay at all. So I'm suggesting London for July, and then a bit faster forks than we usually would do. So suggesting Shanghai for October with anything that naturally comes to accompany London changes. So free for all free, refund remove, base fee.
But even Micah was saying that they weren't even anywhere. They were like, best case scenario would be 1 year.
That was when they were talking about the full ETH 2.0, not the quick merge, which is proof of stake without layer 2.
Yeah,
they'd be relying on the third-party layer 2 solutions instead of their own integrated
the
layer
promise
2
of
solution.
the promise of what the Beacon Chain's doing is
that sounds bad.
To make the protocol more.
If I was in their shoes, that's what I would be doing.
sustainable, and
I don't
scalable.
think this is a bad thing
There's
for,
kind of the
for
prioritization,
Ethereum. It sucks for miners, but
just moving
right
the
thing.
existing Ethereum network from proof of work to proof of stake satisfies the first two of those, making it a more sustainable protocol from a carbon footprint standpoint, as well as a more secure protocol due to some of the properties of proof of stake. Whereas if we did sharding first, you bring scalability to the Beacon chain, but you don't really bring scalability native to Ethereum proper at that point. And so from a prioritization standpoint, I think there's much buy-in to do merge first, but I don't think that's necessarily what we're debating here. I would also argue that bringing kind of the promise of proof of stake and the sustainability and security is likely, I think we could say, a much higher priority than anything we could get into Shanghai. And that would be my prime argument for kind of once London is shipped, or once London releases are shipped, kind of doubling, tripling down on engineering efforts and digging in. I know, some people say there's no way we could do it this year. Some people say, I think, there's enough in that chain set, in that minimal version, that we could actually ship this year. In terms of prioritization, obviously we could ship a small Shanghai fork and work in parallel to that, but I think anything that we do and attempt to prioritize that isn't the merge would likely lead to some amount of delay in that. And so I would definitely argue for all hands on deck and get it done. I think it's kind of one of the core mandates of Ethereum at this point to get that merge done.
Yeah, so Danny said pretty much what I was going to say, but I can add that with the simplification that we have now, merge can be much easier thing to reason about, and we have like the scope is pretty much understood as well, and since the proof of stake has been announced like from the very beginning, and since we have this clear path to the merge, makes a lot of sense to focus on that. And also one thing I would like to add here is that with bringing the execution to the Beacon chain rather than to the shard chain, the merge becomes independent from sharding, which it used to be before when we discussed like phase 1 and phase 1.5. So since we like have all this on the table, I think it makes a lot of sense to pursue a merge after London.
So there's a ton of hands. I'll go ahead. Ansgar and Mika.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to basically agree with what's been said. Primarily, also to point out that basically from the merge research side, I think at least my understanding is that it looks like one of the limiting factors of like basically time to merge really is client like ETH1 client attention basically. And so at least it looks like right now that whatever focus we can shift to the on like the merge earlier, that it gets us to the merge just so much earlier. And so I don't think like any kind of commitment to Shanghai as the merge would preclude that if like a month or two from now we realize that merge can't happen before, I don't know, March or April of next year anyway, then we could always kind of like revisit this decision. But I think at least there seems to be very universal kind of community buy-in to really prioritize the merge, and I don't think any potential features for Shanghai are like important enough.
The time is lost to do the rest of the features that they want to do.
I
don't know.
Yeah, so I personally
that doesn't make much sense to me.
Agree with kind of committing to.
It's
Shanghai's
like we're gonna develop for the next release, but if we can't do the next release because it's too hard, we're just going to then take other features and then do that. But now you've lost 4 weeks.
That are small, for example, the base fee to then be included in London. I think there's like
it's almost like they're trying to force.
Again, the next feature fork might be quite a.
They're trying to force it to get to where they want to be, and they'll just cut things out to make it happen.
One of the bigger ERPs that is potentially considered for London. I think there's definitely a case that there's just no time because of the tight schedule for London. But I would maybe at least propose that we were to kind of like just go ahead with any potential ERPs for London as long as we think we might be on track timeline-wise, and then once we see that it's just like basically we were running out of time, we can always kind of like go with like a more core version of London. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
And Mika,
since we're at time, I was going to ask a question, but I was going to ask a question, but I'll phrase the statement instead to avoid inciting discussion. The question is do we actually have a spec for ETH1 or application clients to go implement, or is it still just in the heads of ETH2 core devs? If it's not, then I feel like we really shouldn't be talking about the merge until we have something that ETH1 clients can actually look at and implement.
So I think the challenge there is that we have more and more, and we need to.
Micah, with the sound of reason.
Sorry, somebody else was speaking.
Yeah, I was just going to say that currently we don't have this spec as a document. Rather that we only have the proof of concept. But yeah, we are working on the spec actively now. So and likely see the spec, or I mean for the application layer, like in the next quarter.
So would be interested to hear like what in the current proposals is not yet specified, because it actually does seem to me to be pretty specific, but we can move the conversation offline.
Yeah, I'd echo that.
Yeah, so I think because we're already a bit over time.
I do want to announce we will be doing a bi-weekly semi-public call. Won't be shared. Won't be streamed or anything. To discuss the merge from an engineering perspective and then kind of dig in. And that would be on the Thursday prior to the all core devs call. So 2 weeks from yesterday. We are looking for, say, an engineer from most teams to sprint on merge testnets from mid-April to mid-May. That would be along with the ETH Global Scaling Hackathon. So if you do have an engineer on your team who's interested in getting involved, that's something that we're going to be discussing in the coming weeks.
Okay, so I guess just to kind of summarize and wrap up. So I think for today, for London, we haven't included anything beyond 1559 and the difficulty bar pushback.
Dev is, dude in their chat B-Tech is like, sorry, Dev is crashing ETH network.
yeah, what do we do with regards to Shanghai for the merge and for and that affects what we do for London and all the other kind of features. And that can be obviously the main topic of the next Awkward Devs. Light Client has a comment about breakout sessions. I'm not sure. To me, it feels like we don't need like one breakout session as much as like just this general conversation about the merge versus Shanghai, and that the different EIPs should probably the different EIPs that were proposed for London or Shanghai should probably keep doing their work and trying to get it ready. But that ideally at the next call we can kind of make a decision about what the scope is for Shanghai. Yeah. Sorry, that was kind of a ramble, but basically next call try to figure out what do we do about the merge in Shanghai, and consequently what goes into London, and over the next 2 weeks just try to keep having those conversations, which I guess will kind of culminate with the merge call 2 weeks from now. That'll be the day before Awkward Devs. Does that make sense for everybody? Any final comments, thoughts?
Sounds good.
Cool. Well, thank you very much.
Well, congrats, Tim,
Thanks,
on
everyone.
a very first well-managed call.
Yeah,
Claps.
we made it.
Yeah, agreed.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, team. Thanks,
Great.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, bye.
All right.
Yeah. Well,
oh my gosh.
that was quite the call. So to summarize, yeah, I would say 3368 is out regardless of what. I mean, if you go back and review that call and go to Danny's comments, I think his were the most educational, shall we say, basically on both sides of the argument. On the one side of the argument is it's naive to think that we can actually do something after the fact when there is a security risk and increase the block reward and think that that's an easy change to make with monetary policy, because you're talking about a decreasing ETH and now you're talking about raising the block reward because your security risk, which will drive the price of ETH down more. So there's that side of things. And then on the other side of things, it's same idea, is you decide to implement 3368, it drives the price of ETH down, causing a possible security risk. So you get into this, what do you do? So instead of Tim saying, hey, these are all good points, why don't we take another 2 weeks or maybe even another 4-6 weeks, since this is an easy change, see how things transpire, see if this ends up being a risk or not, and let's bring it back up, which is what I had requested of him. They just shut it down. And that's because Tim's belief is we can react to this after the fact, which Danny specifically stated that that's naive to think we can do that. But when Tim said what he believed, because he's the leader, Danny didn't speak up.
No.
He'd already said what he thought. He shouldn't
Right.
have to state it again. But Tim basically said what he wanted to have happen, and that's what ended up happening. So that's extremely unfortunate. And that was a very clear showing of how governance works with Ethereum.
You mean the
To say that
dictatorship?
yes, exactly. And it's, I mean, somebody had the opportunity to speak up, but these are developers. They want to write code. They don't want to argue.
Right. They're not. They're not into politicking. They just want to develop.
Right. Now, I will say I think it's very interesting, and I think this probably was determined beforehand, that Vitalik did not say one word during that whole 3368 conversation.
Yep.
He was completely quiet.
Yep.
Anyway, I find it very interesting because obviously if he would have agreed with Tim and said that, then it would have definitely had the look like, oh, okay, this is a top-down thing.
Right.
So anyway, so there was that. That was really interesting. And then obviously the question of what is the timing of Shanghai, the merge, Cancun, all of those. And it was, if you were reading some of the things in their chat, there were a number of people that were like, no, we have a bunch of different things that we need to put in. We're not going to have the merge ready for October. We can work in, I mean, they didn't say this part of it, but I thought what basically they were intimating was that they can work in parallel. Maybe doing a fork in the Shanghai fork in, say, October may delay the merge a month or two, but yeah, it would still be better for ETH to do some of these features that would, again, increase or improve usability even further.
Right.
So I felt like the devs that really knew what they were talking about, who don't like to speak up, were doing it in the chat.
Yeah.
Tom Stanzik, he actually had stated it in the chat and then also stated it openly. But I think we know where Vitalik wants to go. He wants the merge.
Right, yeah. I mean, and he's always wanted the merge, and he's wanted it since day one. But since he's built the whole ecosystem on layer 1 solution and not a layer 2, it's like, what are you going to do with all the people who have already built up onto there? How easy is it for the integration for them? That's going to be a nightmare. I don't think they're 100% ready for that.
Yeah, and I think Micah had, I thought it was Micah that said it, but basically was, how much of this is back of the napkin? How much of this is actually written? Solid, we know where we're going. And
Right.
That was what I find interesting, is when Vitalik came into the conversation at that point, was like, well, I thought the features and this and that and the other thing were all pretty well defined, and you can see very clearly where he wants to go with this. And so it'll be very interesting to see next week, are people going to stand up and state what their opinion is when the conclusion is, Tim will come up and say, okay, so from what I hear, we believe that we should move forward with the merge. Would anybody like to, just basically, would anybody like to disagree with that?
Right, yeah.
I predict it will be crickets, even though the prior half hour of conversation that would have occurred prior to that had half the people disagreeing.
Yep.
So that's my prediction about what's going to happen. But what I find will be interesting is, I don't necessarily think I think that basically means that Shanghai won't be in October. I think the difference, my prediction for the time frame is, if they did Shanghai in October, they could probably do Cancun in March.
Right.
Again, they're parallel. Doing an extra fork is going to take test time, going to take time in all core devs meeting that would be used for the merge. So there will be some delay, but I think the earliest they could probably get Shanghai done. I don't know. It'll either be November or January. Nobody's going to want to do anything in December, would be my guess.
Living our destiny is like, I was wondering if they can actually do it. Devs screaming, not ready, heads saying we're doing it anyway. Smells like Cypherpunk 2077 launch. Exactly.
Yeah, that is a great way of putting it.
Yes.
Well, here's a great example. So remember, the difficulty bomb was put in place to try to push the original reason, and this is, nobody likes to talk about this, but the original reason was to push the developers to get done, saying, well, we got to get done because of the difficulty bomb. The problem is that they made it so easy to push the difficulty bomb that it's become irrelevant.
Yep.
So,
and now that they've kicked the can so far down the road, now they're going, we need to start transitioning the miners now, and we've never done anything to really hurt their profitability. We've just allowed all these new miners to come on board, with the profitability being where it's at currently. We're going to take that away from them and instantaneously turn those few people that just came on board unprofitable.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's like I don't think they realize how many home miners, just they're wanting to participate. They're paying high electric fee, but the transmission output of Ethereum is perfect for them. Now they're going to have to go back to, they're going to have to sell their stuff off or put it into their regular PC and start dollar cost averaging back into the market.
Yeah, I mean, this is a normal cycle, though.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we all know that with where we are right now, there's going to be another bear cycle where
But we're
there's going to be a sell-off of
we're
equipment.
almost doing like an artificial bear market while we're booming.
Yeah, that's true. And the reason why this market has lasted as long as it has is because of the shortage of equipment. Otherwise, we've seen how fast the hash rate's gone up now. It would be going up even faster.
Oh yeah. If we were able to get our hands on there, I'd have probably 130 80s right now.
Yeah, and then the interesting thing is we'd have a much more we'd get to an equilibrium a lot faster. The problem is we're not at equilibrium right now. You can tell that because of how much more profitable ETH is than all the other coins.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
and it's almost like you see the profitability be down on all the other coins, and it should be a slap to those developers' faces going, we need usability. This is not just a mining coin, and we're not a one-trick pony over here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I love Raven, but it's a one-trick pony. You know, they've got their assets that you can register on there. Who cares? I mean, and I like the guys over at Raven. You know, it's like they're you know, Tron Black, he's a good guy and everything, but and him and his team work really hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what other than their own assets and mining, what the hell is their use case?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of things. I mean, that will delve into if you look at all the different other coins and what their value is and all that kind of stuff.
That's my problem with a lot of the other. It's like you're being looked at as a shit coin and have no value. And even when the rest of the market pumps, your pump is nominal because you got to have development. Stop just trying to hype up your community.
Well, what I do find it interesting, if you look at some of the other, some of the other like DeFi apps, and they're diversifying. They're not just putting all their eggs in the Ethereum basket anymore. So if they're starting to do that on a few, there's nothing that stops them from maybe diversifying to other shit coins, I guess, that are also trying to be in the same space to see, hey, let's just, if it's not hard, let's do it on all these things and see what falls out. Diversify into everything, give it a chance, and then if it doesn't take off, well, hey, no harm, no foul. We didn't really have a problem. They'll just have to have some sort of exit strategy if it doesn't work out.
Right.
So, well, hey, this was fun.
Oh, hell yeah, man. It's been, a couple of hours?
Yeah.
Almost 3 hours, dude. We just had a Bitsby tripping live stream.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I said, the funny thing about it is 3368 was supposed to be the main topic for us, and actually the merge is what, in my opinion, has come out to be the real news from this.
That was kind of right. I heard rumor that they were able to push the merge quicker, but I didn't realize.
I heard that.
I didn't realize it was like this. Like they could schedule it like this and just forget a bunch of the functionality of what ETH 2.0 is supposed to bring.
Yeah. I've been watching those conversations in the All Core Devs group, and yeah, they were saying, hey, we just do the merge, just proof of stake, nothing else. So none of the scalability solutions, and the reason for that is that Loopring, Optimism, among others, are thought to be very close. Heck, even if you hear about what Ethereum's talking about with 1559, they want to implement layer 2 payments. To try to solve the issue, the thing with 1559 is all of these pools that are just pushing their payouts within the blocks that they mine. It doesn't cost them anything. They just put it in there. Now it costs the miners because they're putting in their transactions that don't have to pay anything. They can't do that with 1559 because they have to pay the base fee. They can still put all of those transactions with no tip because they can choose to put those in there, but regardless, they still have to pay the base fee.
Yep.
And so that is a huge change for pools to make for 1559. Really, the first one that I've heard that has implemented a solution like to solve that problem is Ethermine. Flex pool, basically you already pay the transaction fee with them because they don't do payouts by lumping it in. Therefore, you can decide how much you want to pay for your payout. Wait for a lower gas time, wait till you have more Ethereum accumulate before getting a payout, so getting fewer payouts, thus paying fewer. So you have a lot more control with Flex Pool, and I don't know how many other, I don't have like vast knowledge of all the different pools to see how they work.
Right.
But those are the two that I'm most familiar with. But I'm curious to see, what some other major pools like Spark Pool and F2 Pool are going to do.
Right.
With this. So.
Or
Anyway.
how the smaller pools will be able to handle all of this too, because they're already, they don't have enough hash power to really compete. So what, you're going to push out the smaller pools?
Well, I think that the smaller pools can implement something similar to what Flex Pool has done pretty easily. I think the bigger pools, the bigger pools will attract the huge miners, the huge farms, because they probably negotiate separate, rates for them. Like for instance, F2 Pool, how are they so big if their pool fee is 3%?
Right.
Well, that's because they got a bunch of huge farms in China and they don't charge them 3%. The 3% fee that F2 Pools basically says, we don't want to deal with the small miner, go away.
Yep.
And they do that through saying that their fee is 3 times as large as anybody else's.
Yep.
So
same thing with Bitmain. Bitmain's up there too.
Mm-hmm.
They're like 3% too, and it's like, okay, you can't tell me that that some of these B-Trash, mines that are out there that are like just mega mines for B-Trash are paying 3%. No.
No, definitely not. So anyway, it's it's been interesting to kind of with a lot of the things with MEV, kind of seeing a little bit more of what actually happens at a mining pool. It's been kind of interesting to kind of see that, and then with 1559 and what that's going to mean. So it's kind of peeling back the onion on mining pools and how they operate, probably a little bit more than they would like. They would like to be like, we are this mysterious thing that we just pay you and just leave it at that. Don't pay any attention to it.
Right.
But people are starting to pay attention to it because of 1559. They're like, okay, we've heard about this thing MEV. So how is this going to help us? And how much more is it going to pay us? And how can we see it?
Right.
I did that short stream after Savage Minds stream last night, showing how you can see it with Flex Pool and where their MEV, how you can see where their MEV is coming from. But right now, Ethermine's saying that they have MEV, but you can't see it.
Nope.
Because they don't show what their payout is per block. So the only thing you have is Etherscan or some other similar tool to see what the payout is for that block. But if there's any additional MEV, you have no way of telling what the way Ethermine is. So we'll see. I think there's a lot of changes for mining pools in the way that they display. So we'll see. It's going to be, like I said, going to be some interesting times in the next couple months.
Oh yeah. I think there'll be a definite shock in the network when it gets implemented. A little bit of confusion at first, and my curiosity is how much of the hash rate is actually going to fall off whenever this happens, because. I mean, you get somebody that's been mining in California somewhere where they're paying somewhere around 24 cents. How many miners out there are going to shut down? Will you actually see California turn off?
And that's one reason why I'm not as concerned about it, because in same thing with you, we know our electricity is going to be below average, significantly below average.
And that starts pushing all the mining more industrial, which pulls it away from the at-home miner, and thus starts to centralize the hash power. Everything that everybody complains about Bitcoin, I mean, it is fucking centralized to a point, not by country, but by people who own the mining facilities. There's only so many big farms out there.
True, and then of course the Ethereum folks have made this argument in the past where it's like, well, yeah, but look, Ethereum hasn't been attacked. Or I mean, Bitcoin hasn't been attacked with all their centralization.
Nope.
We're just not concerned about it.
Right.
And I know that there's a number of devs that feel that way, that ASICs aren't bad. Which I find interesting, the fact that the 3369 was not brought up. I know that somebody wrote it, but probably was afraid to defend it because of GPU Hoarder was threatened with a lawsuit, and he was the one originally wrote the original version of that EIP.
Yeah, the 969 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So, without somebody specifically coming in to defend it. Now, I know that Tim had said to the person that wrote that he has no problem having somebody be anonymous and basically be a proponent for their EIP. So that was a possibility for that person. But I certainly, I'm not questioning their decision. I'm just saying that is understandable that person didn't want to put themselves at financial risk in order to put that forth. And I actually honestly don't think 3369, 969, I don't think that based on some investigation that was done, I know Ogata Girl has commented on it, and I know that there were some people in the 1559 thread that were working with Ogata Girl on some of the information or some of the tools that she has provided to find out about how many ASICs were on the network, and it was certainly less than 20%. I don't remember what the final number was, but it was a lot smaller than most people thought, and therefore I think it's not even worth considering at this point, because it has so little effect. And I know Ogata Girl has said this as well. The ASIC manufacturers are significantly hampered on what they can produce at this point. They are being pushed to the side for basically bigger fish. And you look at the size of what they actually build and pay for, it's small potatoes.
It's almost like people were all worried about the Lindsay miner, and it's like it took them a year to get any of them built, and according to God, she thinks it might be like 100 of them made.
Yeah, and she's got and I've heard the same things. I took what she said in your stream, and I did just a little bit of investigation, and it definitely sounds like they have some, I don't want to say financial problems. Let's say in order to expand and do what they want to do, they have to find a financial backer.
Right. In like whenever she was part of Minority and during the squirrel fiasco, Minority, she was like trying to be like, hey, we're gonna openly go after and get some financial backing to keep Minority going. And the guys over at Squirrel were like, oh no, it should be, grassroots, homegrown. And now even Squirrel is starting to find out, going, yeah, we need big fish to be able to play in the pond. It's like, you can't there's not enough people to grassroots it.
Right. And then the other thing is the predictability of the business. So the company I used to work for was approached by a company that wanted to make an ASIC. I didn't know anything about cryptocurrency at the time. This is before I started getting into it with my daughter. And I find it, and basically, so they looked at the business side of things and said, okay, how many can you forecast? What's the revenue like? And they really couldn't say anything. I mean, this was back early 2019, when things were, not doing well. Whoever was deciding to do this was basically doing this for the future. So it was at that point was kind of, well, we're still in design. We like to have you guys do the prototypes. We don't know what the volume is going to be. So basically, the company I worked for basically said, no, you guys are not a well-established company. There's a lot of risk here. There's very little upside, or you can't commit to any upside. Yeah, no, we're not even going to give you a price because the price would be go away pricing at this point. So they didn't even consider it.
Wow.
Yeah. So obviously right now it would look like, brilliant to have, partnered with them. But yeah. But it's hard to say that you want to work with as a contract manufacturer to work with a company like that when they can't predict what the demand is going to be.
Right.
So
and BTech hopped into from the dev meeting to my chat. He's like, I wouldn't go back to ETH. They are talking about rushing ETH 2.0 merge. Sell all your ETH before that. I can see the merge fail and blocks lost and lots of money lost. It's a potential if they implement it and it's too bare bones. They cut the wrong things out and the governance model falls apart when they implement. Yeah, done.
So I'm not as concerned about the merge falling apart. I think it will get pushed. I don't think that. So the reason why they're trying to keep London simple is because they have a time crunch. It has to be done by July because of the difficulty bomb. So that's the reason for that one and the timing of that one.
Right.
But the next fork is not going to be timed. It will come out when they're ready.
Yep.
Whatever it is, whether it's the features or whether it's the merge. So now what's going to be interesting is they haven't decided, as far as I know, exactly what the time frame of the difficulty bomb is going to be. So that will be very, very interesting to see when they move that to. Because remember, they have basically decided to use it as the nuclear option and will use it as the nuclear option for the merge.
Right.
So they will have to make a decision by the time that London goes live,
right,
as to how long they're going to push it to, because that will define, honestly, when they will need to do the merge.
Yeah, and BTech is saying too. He's like, they already said that they're going to have a meeting about rushing and testing it through April and stuff. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that
I did find that very interesting because that is not open source if they're having closed door meetings.
No. And that's exactly what they were basically saying. They're like, yeah, we're going to have, we'll continue this conversation. And even Vitalik said it too. He's like, we need to have more of a discussion, after this.
Which is fine, because a lot of the discussion on Discord, but to say that they're going to hold a meeting, that came as a surprise to me, because my understanding was that they have all of their meetings are open to anybody that wants to listen.
Right. Right, which also shows that they're changing how they're doing their governance. It's now going to be what the development feels is what they need to do, and they're getting pressured. The developers are being pressured by their shareholders. They're their main investors. It's like at the end of the day, they're not worried about the users and the miners. It's the investors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny to see the users championing this too. It's like, this doesn't. It minutely helps you. Minutely. As long as you're a holder, it will help a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's sheep on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
There's sheep everywhere. But, yeah, the ones that are on the other side, I just don't get. They don't even take the 10 seconds it would take to get at least a little bit of information.
I like the one guy. He's like, centralization, of mining, and mining is all about the pocketbook. And I'm like, how much is 32 ETH? I can't afford that.
Well, that's true, but that's the stupid. It's a stupid argument from either side. Guess what? Are you mining to do it for free?
No.
No. Is he investing to do it for free?
No, nobody is.
No. Everybody's greedy.
Right.
Everybody wants to make money. So when one side talks to the other and says that they're greedy, I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, I feel like we're in a teacher strike or something.
Right.
You know, it's when the school board says, "Oh, the teachers are greedy." No, they just want to make more money, and you don't want to pay it. So there's greed on both sides. You don't want to have to go to your homeowners to say, "Hey, we got to raise your taxes because we need to pay the teachers more." So the homeowners have their greed to say, "I don't want to pay more in my property tax." So it all comes down to wanting to hold on to what they have, make money, in simplest terms, greed.
Right.
That's what capitalism, especially in this country, that's what we have. We have capitalism. That is what we have. So anytime I see the word greed pop up, I immediately discount anybody that is saying that.
Right.
It's like,
I try to combat it. I try to combat it with the whole concept of, okay, you have a job. Is it okay for, like, after working for your boss for 10 years, he slashes your pay in half because he thinks he thinks he's paying too much for the quality work you're doing? And I'm not sitting there going, "Oh yeah, you should have your pay cut because you're doing shit work." It's like, go to work for 10 years and tell me fucking it's okay to get your pay slashed.
But even better than that, this person who's been working for the company for 10 years has been putting into an employee stock purchase plan. And the boss comes to you and says, "I'm going to cut your pay in half, but don't worry, because of all the pay that I'm cutting, my profits are going to go up. So therefore, your employee stock is going to go up in value."
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing. As an employee, I'm sorry, I'd be like, okay, maybe that might be some benefit, but not much.
No,
that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. That is taking it that one extra step further. Going, yeah, your profit sharing should go up in value, so we're good.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, I don't need to give you a pay raise for the next 5 years either, because the stock will go up. That's your pay raise, is me pumping your stock price.
Yeah, and Red Panda brought up this as well, and he was like, look at who actually owns most of ETH. We're talking about
I love that tweet.
How many miners? We have hundreds of thousands of miners, but yet we have maybe thousands, maybe possibly tens of thousands of whales. So who's really the greedy ones? I mean, it's a much smaller number of people that are affected by this.
Right, considering, what was it, 9,000 OG wallets did the pre-mine plus the Ethereum Foundation?
Correct. Oh, the other thing I wanted to bring up, and this I think is going to be really interesting to see if this ends up coming to fruition. There's already been rumblings of a few people wanting to create an EIP that says, why are we burning this ETH? Why don't the foundation is getting it anyway. Why should the foundation burn it? Why don't we keep it for paying for our projects? That's already been brought up. Now, I haven't seen an EIP written to actually put that down on paper, but wow, that would be a shitstorm in the making.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if somebody tried to propose that prior to 1559. It'll be interesting to see if it comes out after 1559, and then we can be like, this was a freaking conspiracy from the start. This is what you wanted to have happen from the beginning.
Right, all the tinfoil hats will be vindicated. I can actually take this off and show my tinfoil hat underneath it.
right, exactly. You said we were conspiracy theorists, but again,
I'm incognito.
I don't find it to be a conspiracy theory because some people have already openly asked the question. It's not like this is not beyond the realm of possibilities.
Right, considering that some of the talks for 1559 happened a little over a year ago.
That's actually been longer than that as far as I think it was March is when it officially got proposed as an EIP of
Right,
last
yeah.
year.
It was like, 9 months ago is whenever they officially openly talked about it on the call dev stuff. But I'm
Right.
sure it's been talked about unofficially behind the scenes longer than that.
So what I think will eventually happen is that once they go to proof of stake and the inflation rate is now so low, that is when they will decide we don't need to burn this anymore.
Yeah.
We don't need to burn it. Now, I say all that, it may all go away again with those layer 2 solutions, bringing down the congestion on the network and therefore lowering the gas fees. So I don't know. It'll all, like I said, it's definitely going to be certainly an interesting 3 months and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, them going to be relying on like Polkadot loop ring and stuff like that. I wonder how much of a potential risk that's going to be for them to be wanting to use that, because like I guarantee you that Polkadot's going to have some kind of scalability integration that'll help Ethereum out, considering that Gavin Wood was one of the Ethereum developers.
So we should probably wrap this up.
You gotta get up.
Like Bitsby Trippin might be doing a live stream here shortly.
Oh shit! Probably to talk
he
about his point of view on what just happened.
Yeah, I mean, I won't bring it up. I'll just read it. I'm going to put a quick recap video for folks on the ACD call discussion today. The question is, do you want that a bottom line up front 2 to 4 minute video or a live stream that has a hard 30-minute max time?
Do it live.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think that's what he's going to end up doing. So that was about 4 minutes ago. So I think that would be good. I just put my vote in for live.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna heart that too and go live.
Yeah. So, hey, again, it was fun. Appreciate you come and join you.
Oh yeah, always, anytime, my man. You're a knowledgeable guy too, so yeah, for sure.
Thanks. I only wish we weren't at this point. I wouldn't have to be knowledgeable about it.
Right. So, all right, guys. If does anybody out there have any quick questions before we hop up off of here? Kind of open the floor up to all of you guys. And Chancoin, since you're late, you're gonna have to rewind it and watch over.
Well, we can give them the quick thing. 3368 isn't going to be included.
No.
That's the short story.
Yeah.
And the merge might be early.
Right.
Really early.
Really early. Oh my God.
Possibly as early as November. But I don't think I think we're talking January to March is probably the more likely.
BTEC's like, I kept asking him how much they were making. No one would answer. Yeah, you'll never get an answer out of that one.
No. Yeah, like I said, Chancoin, I said that it was very clear, even though some people had said that there were some very valid points by what Bitsby Trippin was, and that was just too early to make a call on that, which is, I totally agree with that. Tim then came up and said, so anybody disagree with just not including this in London and then reacting to it after the fact? And it was crickets, even though people had openly disagreed with that during the conversation.
Right.
So Tim holds all the cards.
Right, and Vitalik didn't say a word.
Yeah, he didn't say anything on this subject at all, which I think was the smart thing to do. I think they had prearranged that.
Yeah. For sure. All right, since nobody's got any other questions, guys, thank you for being here. All of you guys out there, remember to smash that Lizzie like button, guys. Subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that good stuff. And thank you, Max, for being here, keeping me company.
No problem. No problem. It's fun.
For sure. And what are you talking about? Fundamental? Warrington Waffle and Spring is coming early. I don't get that. But
maybe it's a later Groundhog Day? I don't know.
Right. All right. Guys, like always, I will definitely see you all on the next one. Yo!